that the Sanitation Appropriate for Education initiative was started back in 2018. To date, SAFE has completed 3,145 of the 3,375 targeted sanitation projects.
2 suspects have been killed in a shootout with police in Mbangeni on the KwaZulu-Natal north coast. In a statement, police say they spotted a white bakkie in a sugarcane field during a routine patrol. When police approached the vehicle, 2 suspects started firing shots and officers retaliated. 2 firearms and several rounds of ammunition were also found in the suspects' possession. Police have confirmed that the suspects had warrants of arrest issued against them in connection with a case of murder. Members of Operation Dudula and angry Soweto residents are continuing to block foreign nationals from registering their spaza shops. They claim that the foreign nationals are stealing business from locals. The group has been at Civic Centre in Jabulani since yesterday, preventing spaza shop owners from registering their businesses. Last week, Cyril Ramaphosa ordered that all spaza shops be registered within 21 days or face closure. These concerned residents had this to say.
We are not even going to shy away from it. Our kids are dying on a daily basis. Foreigners flooding the informal market, and we are expected to keep quiet as a country. We're not going to do that. In fact, we are here today to mark our territory. The township economy, all small businesses that falls under the township economy will belong to South Africans. We are not going to negotiate with anyone, including the state president. He knows what he needs to do. He knows that he needs to implement the laws of this country.
The only thing that you don't want here, it's foreigners to register or to own a small business. Small businesses, it's for South African only. That's it.
A leader of the residents that have volunteered to retrieve suspected illegal miners at Shaft 11 in Stilfontein in the northwest says they have halted their operation. Tembile Botman says this is to allow mine rescue personnel to access and clear the shaft. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, accompanied by Defence Deputy Minister Richard Hlophe, visited the area last week. A task team led by Community Safety MEC Vessels Murweng was formed to retrieve the suspected illegal miners that are underground. Botman explains.
Communication is that they must move away from the ratlets. A ratlet is where they come out to be saved. So because of those stones might make the mine to close them down. So it means they must run away. So, and the rescue team, we must also say the presentation is not guaranteeing that as they're cleaning, they cannot close them down in the shafts.
In international news, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russia must be pushed towards a just peace as his country marks 1,000 days since the start of Moscow's full-scale invasion. Addressing a special session of the European Parliament, Zelensky said Vladimir Putin would not stop the war of his own accord.
I urge you not to forget how much Europe is capable of achieving. And if we could stop Europe's way of life from falling down, we can surely push Russia towards a just peace. Peace is what we desire most.
Recapping the top story, the Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwarube, says the challenge of sanitation in public schools is something the department wants completed by early next year. She says more than 3,000 sanitation infrastructure projects have been completed. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports, the Cell sold out affair in Cape Town for Bafana game. Bavuma back as captain in Proteas Test squad, and Garcia set to rejoin DP World Tour to help Ryder Cup bid. More details at 3:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Mokopane. We do not tolerate any kind of discrimination. Disability Awareness Month 2024. Only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
You know, it's such an interesting thing. I was having a chat with Tumi, our sports anchor, just off air a few minutes ago. And we're talking about, progressing in your life, right? And this got me thinking about an advert that I saw. Well, it's about a 20-year-old advert, and I hope you remember it. It was a Nedbank advert, and this is what happened. This guy, a youngster, looks at a fancy Mercedes-Benz outside a fancy hotel, and he says, what a car. And the guy who's next to the car says, well, thank you so much. My brother bought it for me. And then this young boy says something like, I wish. And then, of course, you know what we're all thinking. We're all wishing that we had a brother like that, right? But then it continues when this guy says, I wish. He then says, and this is the punchline, I wish one day that I can be that sort of brother. And then the payoff line of the advert says, think differently. Now, I just say that because it's got me thinking about how you progress in life. You have to think differently. You cannot play by the same game plan every single day that's not working for you, and you just somehow hope it's going to happen. And part of the thinking differently is to turn the paradigm on its head. There's too often, all of us, including me, we just expect things to happen. So this think differently of this young boy doesn't want to get a handout from his brother, but effectively wants to be big enough to be able to support other people. So perhaps today you can share your thoughts about how you've supported others and how others have supported you and given you a lift up or a hand up in your life. I mean, that's a classic way of thinking differently. Well, that's my point. What's yours? My name is Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse, and as always, so many things we need to be talking about. What are the big issues? Do you know it's 1,000 days, by the way, 1,000 days since we've had this Russian invasion of Ukraine. We will talk to the Ukrainian ambassador about that pretty shortly. But as always, I ask you this question: what for you moves the National Pulse? Because the truth is, each one of us internalizes that question very, very differently. So give it a go. Tell me what you think moves the National Pulse today. 086 000 2032 to call in. WhatsApp, text, voice notes 0614 104 107. And you can post on social media. Of course you can. Tag us on Twitter or the X platform, SAFM Radio. Tag me, Ashraf Garda. Do the same on Facebook as well. What else? Tell me where you are, wherever you may be in the country. And need I remind you, all that we do here, a lot of the stuff that we have, not a lot, just about everything, is also set up as a podcast. So go to safm.goza, and besides listening on streaming live, you can catch all the great action we've had today, yesterday, every other day, all as a podcast, which the plan really is to re-listen to it and then share that with your friends as a means of conversation. And I'll tell you what, talking about conversation, this one has got to be one of them. The issue of the Stilfontein miners, or some may say talk about them as the Stilfontein illegal miners, whichever way you want to put it. Here's the story, the update on that. The Pretoria High Court has postponed the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution's court application that sought relief for illegal miners stuck underground in Stilfontein to Thursday. So that application now postponed to Thursday. Now the court bid that is based on the police's initial plan not to supply any aid or rescue planes to the illegal miners. You know, that story has developed. Let's find out more about it with Yasmin Omar, who's the attorney representing the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution. Yasmin, appreciate your time. You are certainly connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you for having us, Ashraf. Assalamu alaikum. Hello to everybody.
Thank you so much. Right, much appreciated. Yasmin, what then for you is the gist of your application?
Well, it was definitely in response to the stance adopted by government, Ashraf, in respect of the people who were underground. And, you know, we understand the need by the country, by the Minister of Police and by government to curb criminal activity. But what we saw happening in Stilfontein was something bigger. And that is when my client, the society, approached us to say, but there's something untoward happening in Stilfontein, and we foresee a disaster worse than Marikana. Now, the minister, you'll remember, originally said, we're going to keep the people underground, we're going to smoke them out, and we're going to persecute them. Prior to that, the community, the local community, were assisting the miners underground by giving food and aid to them, food, water, blankets, and things like that. But when the police decided to go on this campaign that they call Valam Godi to close the hole, they resolved that they will exercise a different type of policing. They would keep the people underground, not give any supplies, no food, no water, no blankets, no medical care, and that they believed that operation will result in the people coming out, being forced to come out, and then they would be able to arrest them. Now that didn't necessarily happen. It didn't happen in the fashion that the police probably planned in their head. And we've asked repeatedly, give the people relief, because you can't, this is not usual policing. We can't, in the aim of policing, commit violations of basic human rights like the right to life. Because what happened was, as soon as they stopped allowing the community to give food and supplies to the people underground, people started dying. And last week, sometime I think on Wednesday or Thursday, one body was pulled out. It was an immediate alarm bell for all of us to scrutinize what is going on, because now we've got someone who's died while the police are watching and while we are watching on the news as to what is going on. So we brought the urgent application on Saturday asking the court to order the state organs, particularly the ministers, to provide emergency aid to the people. You will remember the stance adopted by government is these are criminals and we will not assist them, we will not help them. So we brought that application to say, despite them, even if they are criminals, even if they've done something wrong, provide these basic needs to them and find another way of doing your policing. Because we must remember, Ashraf, that we have a law and order in our country. The Constitution guarantees people certain rights in it. And even people who are charged for offences, it can be the worst serial killer or somebody who's done something completely atrocious. We take them into prison, we put them there, and what do? We give them food. We give them meals. We give them hospital, medical attention. If they get sick, they go to a hospital. So it appears that somewhere along the line, our government has lost Ubuntu. We've lost our humanity, because it is unconscionable in our democracy for people to be dying in this fashion underground in the name of policing.
All right, now let me just interject. I mean, one is government, but two, and I understand there's the government, there's the Constitution, and of course there are people. And I can tell you now, and the show is called The National Pulse, and if I get a sense of the feel of the pulse of the nation in the last week, yes, I'm being anecdotal about it, but I can tell you now, the vast majority would be telling you, Yasmin Omar, just keep your mouth shut. We don't want to hear your nonsense. These people have gone down there. They're illegal. They're heavily armed, which the president also confirmed. They are dangerous. They knew exactly what they're doing. How do we, as a country that's battling to keep other people alive, now worry about them when they've committed a crime? We don't have the time. We don't have the money. Just leave them there to rot. And I'm giving you a sense of, encapsulates the type of senses and the mood that I've heard all week. How do you respond to that?
I think if we descended into that, then throw away our constitution and throw away our democracy, because then we've lost the plot of what we're doing. We came out of a past like this, Ashraf. We came out of a past, out of apartheid that was horrendous. We came out of immense hardship to people. What are we doing now? We are saying, oh, these illegal miners, we have to, if they're not going to come out and surrender themselves, they must die under there. Now, what kind of people are we if this is what we are resorting to? Saying, you know what we're now going to do? We're going to trap people inside these mines and we're going to let them die inside there. It's a life sentence.
Okay, now interestingly enough, you gave the Marikana example early on.
Yes.
Explain why you said that. What's the link between what's happened at Stilfontein and Marikana?
Let's explain what is going on here. These people who go underground, do you think they are people who have resources like everybody else? Like they've got a lot of money in their bank accounts and they're going in there for fun to make more money? No. The people who are recruited to go underground are the poorest of the poor. They are fathers, they are brothers, they are husbands. They go underground not because they're having fun there. They are going because they are desperate. That province where Stilfontein is has the highest level of unemployment. Now, what does government do? You take away the jobs. You're retrenching people from the mines. You give no other jobs to the community. And now, in desperation, these people are recruited and succumb to recruitment by various agencies. There are syndicates operating. There's other people calling upon them to come to work, and the bulk of them underground have come to what they think is a legitimate job. They're coming and they're surrendering to people who are recruiting them simply for work, because there's no other work in the country for them. Now, our public must be alive to this. The person who's underground doesn't know necessarily that what we are doing is illicit or illegal. According to them, we are employed, we got a job.
But
So
you really think they
people
don't
must
know
not
that they're
be
doing something?
short-sighted.
But Yasmin, you really think they don't know that they're doing something illegal? I think that would be naive, don't you?
Well, and Ashraf, have you spoken to them? Have anybody listened to their case?
I've heard some testimony from different people on different channels, and they concede we're doing something illegal and we don't have a choice. I mean, I've heard that part, but they've conceded that they're illegal.
Ashraf, do you know there's an age-old case from English law? People were stranded on a boat somewhere out in the sea, and they didn't know how to survive, so two of them killed the third one. And they were found not guilty. Do you know why? Because they raised the defense of necessity. So it was good enough for those group of people the stranded out in the sea. But how is that suddenly, as a nation who created the Bill of Rights, suddenly the law is different for all of us? Don't you think if it was your family member, you would say, it's fine, pull this person out, give them a trial, let them say what they want to say. And if you find that they are guilty, it's fine, then we can imprison them. But we cannot, without trying these people, give them the death sentence to rot underground.
Okay, I want to move on. Just you made the point about the link between Marikana, and I'm just interested to know why you've made that link, and tell me why. Because you said this could be another Marikana.
I'll tell you why. Because Marikana was a disaster for government. They made the wrong decision in allowing the police to go there and open fire. In that case as well, they said, let's take a harsh route. Now we should have learned from Marikana. We should have learned this is not the way to do it. Now here we got a situation where people are underground and there's a standoff. Government initially took the attitude, no, we're never going to assist them. They're criminals. But you have to assess whether this is the best route going forward. The international community is referring to this as a disaster for human rights for the country. We were a bastion. We flew the human rights flag high. So the people who now want to jettison all of the good work done by the creators of the Constitution are doing it with this kind of activity. Sure, police must do policing, but we don't do it in this fashion. So what is going to happen now? You see, Marikana, people got shot. Now we have commemorations of them every year.
Mm-hmm.
And say so many lives lost in Marikana. Now tell me, how is it different? What happened in Marikana as to what is happening here?
Okay, so it's
what they
important.
did there was they opened fire on people. Now we're commemorating and we're saying sorry to the Marikana widows and children.
Okay.
So now we've got the people underground. We're going to let them die there. All of us, while we're watching on TV, they're going to put out more corpses. According to the people who came out, they said there are hundreds of people dead already underground.
Okay,
so
point made.
After a year, say the same thing.
Okay, point made. I'm going to just push you because we need to wrap up, right? What do you feel then? I've heard all the things you've said. What do you say to the average South African who's unemployed themselves, who comes from homes where there's generational unemployment, who looks at these people, many of them foreign nationals, and I don't know whether they are documented or not, we don't know that, but many of them may be undocumented, and their perception to say, we don't need these people here because they've taken away our jobs. Even these type of jobs, they've taken away our jobs. How do you respond to them, if not in a legal way, in a humane way?
That's all we're asking. Let's do things in a humane way. We are not telling government, do not take action against illegal foreigners or anybody doing wrong in the country. We are saying things must be done in a proper way in line with the Constitution. So I'm saying to all our people, even those who feel disgruntled because you don't have jobs, you may not have jobs. These guys are not taking, you are saying that they're engaging in illegal activity. That's not taking jobs. You don't want that job, right? Because you are saying it's illegal. So this is just simply a move by the police to combat crime. We are saying, pull those people out. Send people down there, take the people out, and try them if you must, according to the rules of law. But do not shut them down and tell them to starve to death.
Okay,
That's what we are saying.
All right, quick answer. What for you, Yasmin Omar, is the win-win situation? Just quick answer on that one.
I think if the ministers got together with us or all the necessary people and pulled those people out by agreement and gave them assistance, pull them out, give them food and things like that, bring them out, and you can try them in court if you have to.
Okay, and that's where we're going to leave it. Yasmin Omar, appreciate your time and sharing your insights. Attorney representing the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution. Right, let's get reaction. This is the National Pulse.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Bikwana Jametsi want to prove that they can swim in all kinds of tough circumstances and shock Masanda Wanda to be crowned the champions. But Bafana Bastal trust their superior game plan will deliver a trophy to the Yellow Nation. This is the Calling Knockout Final. Fagukesi! Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ibola Semzansi, Makezi FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC on Saturday, 23 November, live on SABC1 at 5:30 p.m. and SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Tulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
No one is going down. Mine Rescue Services is not going down. Police officers are not going down. No one is going down. And so far we've mentioned a lift that will be installed to go down. How's that different from what is happening now, where police are standing at the surface and saying, come up, and the people are not coming up?
No, it's different. We have seen for ourselves that some of the miners, they are weak.
You're saying some of them are weak, but you're not sending emergency services to go down there.
What is emergency services?
I don't know, paramedics, for example. If people are weak, one imagines that some would need to be carried on a stretcher and the likes.
No innocent life will be sent beneath the ground. We can't do that. We can't send innocent people below the ground to go and deal with hardcore criminals. You see, that's one thing that we are forgetting here.
MEC Vessels Morweng, who is the MEC for Community Safety and Transport Management in the Northwest.
This is Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. All podcasts can be downloaded on safm.co.za. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, it's fascinating how things develop in the world, and you know, on the one hand, we reflect on what's happened in Palestine and Israel, and that 7th anniversary, 7th October anniversary. The other is regarding the Russians and Ukraine. Would you believe it? It's now 1,000 days today since my understanding of the Russians invading the Ukraine. So where do we stand with that now? What about the future? There's also been changes globally in terms of the political leadership of significant countries, hashtag the USA, right? So where do we go with this? With me is the Ukrainian ambassador to South Africa, Ambassador Lubov Abravitova. Appreciate your time, Ambassador. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon and good day to all the listeners. Thank you for inviting me to speak today.
So first things first, I mean, the fact that I'm talking about 1,000 days, I mean, can you quite believe on a very personal level that we are talking about 1,000 days and it seems like there's been no significant shifts in that position?
It's actually for Ukrainians 1,000th day of full-scale Russian invasion, but it's more than 4,000 days of Russian war against Ukraine. So you not only believe in this, but you also realize that this is so many days of never-ending missile, drone, aerial bombs, artillery strikes aimed at our cities, our schools, hospitals, infrastructure. Now when Russia is trying to hit our energy infrastructure in order to freeze Ukrainians on the eve of the harsh winter. So it is very real. This is where we live in the contemporary world and what is world witnessing.
All right, let's then split this into two, the humanitarian impact and the political solutions, perhaps. So let's talk about the humanitarian impact it's had on the lives of Ukrainians.
Obviously, the impact for so many years is, first of all, that a lot of Ukrainians had to leave Ukraine to find safer places. We're talking about more than 7 million Ukrainians that are living today abroad, and of course, thanks to the countries where they are receiving the assistance on one hand. On another hand, you realize that these people probably will assimilate where they live and will never come back to Ukraine. How do we support their identity as Ukrainians? How we encourage them to develop Ukraine when the war is over? This is the open question. The Russian deliberate targeting of Ukraine's civil infrastructure also tells you that after we achieve the just and sustainable peace, Ukraine will have a long way to go with reconstruction of the country. The damage is very severe, and we do not see any attempt or any readiness of Russia to stop its genocidal war against Ukraine.
Let's then talk about, do you have like a personal anecdote to share? Hopefully not of yourself or your own family, but just somebody that's got a story about how their lives have changed from 1,000 days back.
I don't think that the word, maybe it's my English that I understand it not correctly, but anecdote, unfortunately there is not something that we can make jokes out, maybe.
No, not jokes. I think maybe you got the wrong word. Anecdote in terms of sharing an actual story that we understand, like a story, a personal story of someone you may know, or someone that's something that's been related to you.
I will tell you the story of one person who went yesterday out of the house. He had a house, he had a family, a wife and 3 children. And when he came back, the house was destroyed. The wife and 3 children died during the attack on Sumy. So this is the story that is the latest one, which makes every Ukrainian feel very broken, because this is just one of the many stories when people are losing their beloved, they are losing everything that they were living for. And the war is bad. The war is very difficult to perceive. But when you realize that this is the war for survival, you are actually trying to keep united with your people, with those who believe in the joint future. This is the story.
Okay, and then to wrap up now, I made the point about political solutions. There's Russia, there's the Ukraine, there's the European Union, there's NATO. There are other countries. There's a change in the USA with regard to a new president that comes in January. There's also South Africa, right? How do you think all this is going to work out? Do you get any sense that there's a solution in the offing?
Well, we are now preparing for the second peace summit and moving forward with all our partners step by step, according to the peace formula of President Zelensky. You witnessed probably different peace formulas and solutions that are offered today, and President Zelensky is standing ready to incorporate them in our peace formula to achieve just and long-lasting peace. Between August and November, we hold 9 thematic conferences on the points of the peace formula, and we are moving towards the second peace summit, where we expect Russian representatives would be invited to start finding their way to just solution.
Okay, and just quick answer, yes, no. Has South Africa done enough to provide a solution?
More.
It can do more. maybe the more is something we'll talk about some other time. Appreciate your time, Ambassador Abravichova, the Ukrainian ambassador to South Africa, marking 1,000 days since the Russians invaded the Ukraine. They may say they've said so in defense of what they saw was growing militancy in that region, NATO-backed militancy, all very, very complicated. What we do know for sure, as always, it's the people that suffers. And 1,000 days in, it's the people whose lives have been torn apart, isn't it? Just gone 3:30 is the news headlines with Tondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, government is working with private partners to try to fast-track the eradication of peat latrines in schools by early next year. This is according to the Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwagube. The chairperson of Parliament's Communications and Digital Technologies Committee, Kusela Diko, says the department's inability to meet its own deadline to facilitate the analog to digital switch off is an unmitigated disaster. And there's been international criticism of the decision by a Hong Kong court to sentence 45 democracy activists to up to 10 years in jail. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedford has a crash reported near Van Buren Road. The N12 westbound in Benoni has a fatal crash reported near Tom Jones Street. The road's been closed and traffic is being diverted at Snake Road. The R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a crash reported at Pomona Road. The N12 westbound in Diepkloof has a crash on the link to the N1 north at Diepkloof interchange. And Main Reef Road westbound in Amalgam has a crash reported near Dorado Avenue. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle reported at Cliffdale. The N3 eastbound is slow moving at Cliffdale. The N2 southbound has a crash reported before the M25 Commercial Highway. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, Bafana will host South Sudan in an AFCON qualifier match at DHL Stadium this evening. Kickoff is at 6 p.m, so expect delays on local routes throughout the area. The M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange, and Strand Road eastbound and Stickland is slow moving towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
I sound like a ringmaster, maybe in a boxing ring, if not circus. Bafana versus South Sudan in Cape Town. Can you tell us more?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Cape Town Stadium will definitely be a buzz today, as all 40,000 tickets available sold out today as Bafana hosts South Sudan in their final Group K Africa Cup of Nations qualifier later in the day. The match kicks off at 6 p.m. at the 55,000 capacity stadium, and just this morning it was announced that more seats had gone on sale in the upper stands to meet the massive demand of the public. Meanwhile, Bafana captain Ronald Williams is set to play his 50th match of the national team. Williams made his debut back in March 2014 during a 5-0 loss to Brazil, a proper baptism of fire for a 22-year-old. And just reflecting on the day, Williams says that the criticism that night only made him stronger.
The most important game for me was the first game, which was against Brazil. Even though we lost 5-0, I still have so many memories, and that game taught me so much. It's probably the reason why I am where I am today, because I had to persevere. I was called many names, and it made me strong at such a young age. You know, I think I was 22 years old, and there was so many doubts for many, many years, and that game just made me, at such a young age, turn me into a man. And that was probably the most important game that I've played for Bafana.
Well, he's definitely a man indeed, and he's been doing exceptionally well, growing with leaps and bounds in his career as a whole. Elsewhere, Marumo Gallants have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality. The partnership will see the club use the Dr. Randlai Petrus Molemela Stadium as their home ground, and Toyota Stadium as an alternative for the next 3 years. Then there's some COSAFA Under-20 Women's Championship that is currently underway. underway. South Africa currently facing Mozambique at the University of Johannesburg's Soweto campus. The last time I checked, there were no goals as yet, but we'll definitely keep you up to date with that action. In cricket, the Proteas have announced their 14-player squad for the upcoming 2-test series against Sri Lanka at home. A major inclusion in the side sees Captain Themba Bavuma return as skipper, having recovered from a left elbow injury which ruled him out of the recent series in Bangladesh. Two more changes in the squad that featured in Bangladesh have Marco Jansen and Gerald Coetzee back in the test side for the first time since the home series against India earlier this year. Meanwhile, former New Zealand all-rounder Doug Bracewell has been suspended for a month after testing positive for cocaine. The 34-year-old failed a drug test after a domestic T20 game in January. An initial 3-month ban was reduced to 1 month after he completed a treatment program. Then finally, in golf, Sergio Garcia is set to rejoin the DP World Tour for the 2025 season because he says that he wants to play at next year's Ryder Cup. The 44-year-old, who is the event's record point scorer, wants to match Lee Westwood and Sir Nick Faldo's European record of 11 appearances at the competition. However, in order for that to happen, the Spaniard has had to settle the outstanding fines reported to be more than £1 million imposed on him by the tour for his previous defection to play live events, and he will also have to serve a suspension. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. Looking forward to the action this evening.
But let's talk about this. So look, let's get this right. So 40,000 crowd, 55,000 capacity, which means they actually reduced the capacity in advance, right? I wonder why. Maybe just to make it more cozy. They didn't expect that crowd, right?
Perhaps they didn't expect that crowd, but also maybe they just don't want it to fill to capacity. For safety's sake.
I think it's more the other
for
way.
Safety's sake.
It just looks better. They're all downstairs as opposed to upstairs. But okay, more significantly, they've already qualified, right?
They have
so
already
what's
qualified.
the significance of this game besides celebration?
I guess it's just to solidify their spot at the top of Group K, and also just so that they can see if they are actually ready for the Africa Cup of Nations.
Okay, let's see if they are. Remember, I think it was the same team, South Sudan, that did South Africa a favor by beating, the Congo Brazzaville before their last game to ensure that we were safely through to Morocco. Okay, there we are. All exciting stuff. We need more sport in an hour.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
The Gunners of London are gunning for victory in their own backyard when they tackle Nottingham Forest.
He's done well, Martinelli, chance for Arsenal here, Martinelli scores!
But the Tricky Trees refuse to remove their foot off the pedal as they navigate a way to the top 5.
And headed in! It's a goal for Forest, and it's Murillo!
This is the Premier League. Catch the incredible encounter between Arsenal FC and Nottingham Forest FC on Saturday, 23 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at Outsurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. You'll also find out about included benefits like panic assistance and help it out 24-hour roadside assistance. Yusuf, 45 from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
I helped it out, took the family up to go and see the snow, and I got stuck. The service was quick, even though it was in a very remote area. Absolutely phenomenal service from Outsurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, let's get some of the voice notes. We're going to talk about ESCOM just now. You know, there's this ESCOM deadline we've been talking about, 24th of November, right? So we'll talk about that just now. Let's get some comments on the conversation we had up front with Yasmin Omar. And there's pro and against to that.
Ms. Yasmin Omar, there are better ways of marketing your law firm. If you're not making money, it's not our fault. But there are better ways of marketing your law firm. This is not one of them. What you are saying, you know yourself, is very wrong.
Well, they believe they've got a constitutional right to be on the side of the illegal miners, as one may say.
Hi, Ashraf. Marie-Louise here from Cape Town. I completely agree with your previous guest, Yasmin. They need to do this properly. They need to do this humanely. They need to do this according to the Constitution and according to common human decency. It's really not that difficult. Just be human. Thanks.
I tell you what, many may agree with you, and I know many disagree with you, but interesting that you clearly see the point that Yasmin Omar and her legal team is making.
It's very funny. I don't know where your lawyer started. I would suggest he must go back and do maybe extra 2 years. No. That lawyer needs to be checked. That lawyer.
Okay. Interesting. People talk about the lawyer's reasons and motivation. The lawyers know their story. I mean, I think they know their story and they believe constitutionally that they are spot on. Well, let's see how that plays out, isn't it? Okay, let's talk to Daphne Mokoena from ESCOM right after this.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, we've been talking about this for a month. Okay, and that is that ESCOM deadline. It's in my brains. I wake up 24th of November. I know that one. Sunday, right? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that prepaid electricity meters need to be updated or recoded or else, isn't it? So here's a reminder from Daphne Mokoena, the spokesperson for ESCOM. Daphne, good to connect with you on the National Pulse. Hello.
Hello, Ashraf, and hello to your listeners.
All right, so let me give you the opportunity first up to remind us what we need to be wary of in a few days' time.
Yeah, and you saying that you've been talking about this since last month. Actually, ESCOM has been talking about this since August 2023, reminding customers that this day of the 24th of November will be coming where their prepaid meters will be expiring and requesting customers to update their meters. Updating their meters means that it's a simple process, which is a do-it-yourself basically process where customers are expected that when they buy their electricity for recharging their electricity, then they get 2 additional 20-digit codes, which they just have to upload on their meters and finalize the uploading with their the credit token.
Okay, so if they don't do so, what then happens?
So if they don't do so by 24th of November, which is the coming Sunday, meaning that we are just left with 5 days, then it means that that meter will expire. By meter expiring, so what it means is that if that meter has a credit or has credit units, so once those credit units runs out, and the customer would now obviously want to upload or recharge their meter, then that meter will not accept the credit tokens that the customer would have bought, because that meter will still be on what we call key revision 1 instead of key revision 2.
Okay, so they can't upload, and when the power runs out, that's it. They're in trouble, right?
Yeah. So you can't upload, and what it means that you'll be off. And if you are off and you don't even have those units with you, the 220 digits that I spoke about, then it means your meter will be inoperable. It won't work anymore. It means ESCOM must come and replace it, and it may cost you about 12,000 Rand as a customer. So clearly, we don't want customers to be paying such, because it is unnecessary costs. And we're saying to all customers, including that those that have not been buying, because we're encouraging them to just forget about those illegal syndicates that they've been buying from and buy from authorized vendors so that they can get their 20-digit numbers, the 20-digit number to update their meters.
I must concede, forgive my naivety, and we've been talking about this even through the month. When you talk about buying from illegal vendors, I never knew you could do that you could buy a recharge voucher that works from an illegal vendor. How is that possible?
So there's this ghost vendors, or what we call illegal vendors, that have that are selling to our customers those tokens that are illicit, and obviously these tokens come at probably a lesser price than Eskom, and hence some of the customers are buying from these syndicates. But we are saying obviously that is criminal from you as the a customer buying from that a ghost vendor, including, not mentioning obviously those ghost vendors that are selling these particular tokens.
So let's recap in the few days remaining. What must we do?
So in the few days that remain, in the next 5 days, we expect that those customers check your meter if it's not updated as yet. And there's that 0184 number that is on our website that customers can look for, and just check your meter if it is on KRN2 or KRN1. If it's on if it displays 1, it means it's not updated. If it displays 2, it means it is updated. There's no need for you to update your meter. So we're saying that because we're seeing that we've got still a number of customers that have not bought, those customers must go and buy so that they can get their 20-digit number and get to update their meters. So that's why we're saying that we suspect that the customers that are not coming, because by May already, Ashraf, we had already about close to 4 million customers that had actually updated their meters, and now we're struggling to get to the 6.9. Currently we're sitting at about 5 million customers that have come forward and have bought their their credit tokens so that they can get their 20-digit number. So what we are urging customers to do, even though you have not bought for some time or you haven't bought for years, just go and buy using your meter number. You'll get the extra 20-digit numbers. That means that then what is required from you is to upload those 20-digit numbers. You start with them, then you conclude with your credit token.
And you're saying that Eskom hotline number is on the website, but can you read it out to us now?
Okay, so the number that we're looking at, because it's a 20-digit number.
Or is it too long? Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll get Fusani to assist us with that one there, and it will actually I'll read it out as well just now. Right. Also they can go to the website, and the website will give it to them.
They can go to our website. Also on our social media platforms, we've got that number as well.
That's fine.
But I will give it to your producer.
Here's the last thing. It's something I raised with you before, right?
Yeah, I can read it now. I found it.
Okay, go for it very quickly. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's 1844.
Yeah.
6744.
Right.
0738.
Yeah.
4377.
Yeah.
2416.
Okay, that's 20 digits.
Yes, that's 20 digits, and then the customer, when he sees a 1 or 1.2 on his or her screen, then you should know that you have not updated. You still need to go and buy and get the 20-digit number. If you see a 2 or a 2.2, then you know on your screen, the meter screen that is, then you know that you have your meter, it is updated. There's nothing for you that you do. And you do this only once.
Okay.
It's not a matter of doing it twice. If you have done it last year, then you are covered. There's no need to do it.
All right. Here's the last thing, something I raised with you before, right? Just very quickly. What's the difference between those who get their power from Eskom, but actually via City Power, compared to getting it from Eskom directly? Do they still need to follow the same processes?
So those are not our customers that are getting from City Power. So they are City Power customers. So they need to follow the processes as stipulated by City Power. But what we know is that municipalities also have these standard transfer specification meters or STS meters that needs to be updated as well, because all those STS meters will be definitely expiring on Sunday.
Okay, got it. I think from my side, where I live, City Power changed our meters a year ago, so I think I'm okay, but I'll double check it again.
You should be, yeah. I suppose you're okay because that was close.
Yeah. Daphne Mokoena, spokesperson for Eskom. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. So there you are, November 24. That's the day. Don't lose your power.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
And there's been a range of people commenting about the conversations we had, certainly not just with the issue of Ukraine-Russia, but definitely around the issue of the court application for the Stilfontein illegal miners put together by the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution, and the conversation I had with Yasmin Omar, the attorney. By the way, that conversation, the podcast will be up shortly, and the same with the podcast around Ukraine-Russia as well. So you can check it up right away and do share that amongst your friends. So it's the basis of a conversation I think you're bound to have. But many people commenting, I know that. We'll take further calls on that one just now. 086 000 2032, and then WhatsApp, text, voice notes, both options. 0614 104 107. My name's Ashraf Garda, and this is the National Pulse. Right, now talking about the National Pulse, something that happens abroad does an impact on South Africa, and that's how it is, national and global pulse in many ways, right? You may be aware of the G20 summit. We chatted to Sophie Mokoena about it yesterday, right? So, the summit's now drawing to a close. It means South Africa takes on the chairmanship or the chairpersonship of the summit for the better part of the next 12 months. And there are many issues that have been discussed, but amongst them, one is the official summit. Then there's what is called the G20 social, and linked to all of that is the issues of hunger, poverty, climate change that does impact on every single human being in the world. Let's get the position of Kamal Rambaruth, who's the G20 project lead for the IEJ, which is the Institute of Economic Justice, right? Kamal, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, of course, you are there and in Brazil, I understand, at close quarters. What for you, has been maybe the headline news to emerge from there?
Well, there have been three main things that have kind of come out of the Brazilian G20 presidency. And I mean, this presidency is insane. There are hundreds and hundreds of meetings that happen throughout the year, over 18 working groups, each working group having 4 or so meetings. There's a lot of negotiations going on. But out of all of this, I think there are three main things that we can draw from Brazil's presidency. The first is the task force on a global alliance against hunger and poverty, which has resulted in a global alliance against hunger and poverty that aims to kind of play a role in kind of reducing transaction costs around hunger and poverty and risk mitigation and kind of really putting energy around that agenda that has been on Lula's mind for many years. The second big one is the G20 social. And the G20 social is an innovation of the Brazilian presidency, where the Brazilian presidency has kind of tried to bring social movements into the G20 official processes. Now, remember, the G20 is a consensus forum where 20 of the richest countries around the world that make up 85% of global GDP and 75% of international trade, it's where they come to meet, right? And there's been a huge backlash in the past from social movements and civil society to say we aren't being listened to. Our voices are not being heard. And so what Lula has done is he's galvanized his social base, which is largely from social movements, and he's created a space for their voices to be heard. And this kind of takes the form of, one, there was a summit last week which was massive. Thousands of people, more than 5,000 people. There was huge concerts on. There was a market. There were hundreds of meetings and places for discussions and all kinds of things in a massive venue. It really was a spectacle. So there was this kind of summit thing that happened. And then the G20 Social in Brazil has also done something very interesting. It's democratized the participation of civil society and other engagement groups in the official negotiations. Right? Okay, you might be saying, how can civil society or business or whatever negotiate in the actual G20 negotiations? But it's not that. It's not direct negotiations. What's essentially happened is in the mid-year meetings and in the end-of-year meetings, the leadership, the Sherpas, and the leaders of the finance track were given an opportunity to hear from the different engagement groups, the different elements of civil society, and they gave an input on what they think the G20 countries should be doing and what they think the policies should be adopted and what they think the outcome should be.
So
the final thing...
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, the final thing that has come out of Brazil's G20 is a ministerial declaration on taxing the super rich. This is really unprecedented, and it's something that the Brazilian government has worked really hard to bring to the table. And now taxing the super rich, or a tax on the world's dollar billionaires, is on the G20 agenda.
Okay, lots to consider there. So first things first, if I go back to some of the points you've raised, right? You talked about the G20 social versus G20 leaders, right? Do you sense that, considering the proposal has come from the Brazilian leader himself to establish the G20 social, is there a sense of collaboration, or do you sense there's friction or bound to be friction? Because I would think that they serve different agendas.
Well, I think it's a really good question. And in any democracy, there's bound to be some friction. But I think that from, President Lula's position, he's really tried to give a voice to the social movements in Brazil, the marginalized groups. He's really tried to give them that platform. But I think your question is incredibly important because we need to distinguish the opportunity to have a voice and the opportunity to have power to change things, right? And what he's done is he's allowed people to present their positions. But whether those positions make it into the final leaders' declaration is a different question. And I'm of the opinion that they don't, right? Because at the end of the day, the G20 is a negotiating forum for the 20 richest states. And it's a consensus forum. What does a consensus forum mean? A consensus forum means that any negotiation or any outcome document, any negotiated text or declaration, it has to be agreed upon by every single state for it to be published, right? So that's what a consensus forum means. And many of the demands, even of the Brazilian government, are far more progressive than the demands of, I don't know, for example, the Argentinian state,
Okay, so very quickly,
this complex
therefore,
dynamic around the fact that it is states negotiating this text, not civil society.
I hear that. Okay, so very quickly, therefore, if you reflect on Brazil's achievements in leading the summit this year, what would that be?
Well, as I mentioned, I think it's the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. It's the establishment and democratization of the G20 through the inclusion of the G20 social. And I think it's the ministerial declaration on taxing the super rich that has made, that's huge.
But that means you see that, they're not just raised, you see that as actual meaningful achievement, right? And maybe the last thing I'll get to you before we get to news time now, right? South Africa now takes over the leadership of the G20. So considering what I would perceive as a cozy relationship between South Africa and Lula on the one hand, do you see much of the same, or you could see dramatic shifts?
Look, I think that the dramatic shift will come when the U.S. hosts the presidency in the year after South Africa does. But South Africa is, or has said to be, very committed to the momentum on the G20 social and on taxing the super rich. And South Africa's kind of theme that they want to put forward is solidarity, equality, and sustainable development. They've got a huge task ahead of them in an increasingly divided world. And yeah, I think they'll need all the help that they can get.
And that's where we can leave it. I'm pretty sure we're going to have more conversations about just that. Kamal Rambaruth in Brazil right now, but South African, of course, speaking about the G20, is the G20 project lead for the Institute of Economic Justice. Lots to reflect on that. How about you giving me your opinion? Because as long as there's an economic injustice in the world, well, that plays out in every sector of global society. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Gwagube on a mission to eradicate pit latrines, and the Madibeng municipality faces a potential blackout. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. Government is working with private partners to try to fast-track the eradication of pit latrines in schools by early next year. This is according to the Minister of Basic Education, Sivuyo Gwagube. Gwagube says the deadline for the total eradication of pit latrines in schools is set to be completed by end of March next year. She says they have already joined forces with other private partners.
Some of the work that is done by corporate and social partners who are helping us clear this backlog. In fact, yesterday I was in rural KwaZulu-Natal handing over flush toilets at Deda Primary School that had only basic pit toilets for many years for over 600 children who go to that school.
The chairperson of Parliament's Communications and Digital Technologies Committee, Kusela Diko, says the department's inability to meet its own deadline to facilitate the analog to digital switch off is an unmitigated disaster. This after Minister Soli Maladzi informed the committee that the deadline of 31 December this year is unlikely to be met. The switch off has been 13 years in the making, while no final decision was made going forward. Digo says the department will have to return before the committee soon.
I think that I don't want to be called alarmist yet again, but I think this issue is really an unmitigated disaster. There are many gaps, which I think members have pointed out in their interactions. And I think, Minister, we empathize with the problem that you are currently facing. But we do need to invite you back soon to tell us what are you then going to do.
The Madibeng municipality in Brits in the northwest is facing a potential blackout. This is due to unpaid electricity and water bills totaling 129 million rand owed to the city of Tshwane as of October 31 this year. This debt has prompted Tshwane officials to issue a notice of disconnection. Energy expert Samson Mapweli weighs in on the matter.
In some cases, municipalities normally collect the revenue from selling of electricity, and then they redirect such revenue to other municipal services, especially where they see greater areas of concern by various creditors being expressed. So, and then they end up not paying Eskom for the bulk electricity purchases that they do.
The Public Servants Association in KwaZulu-Natal has appealed to its members and health employees to prioritize the wellness of patients. PSA manager Mlungisi Ndlovu was speaking at the handing over of a rehabilitation ward at Clarewood Hospital in Durban. The centre was refurbished by the Road Accident Fund and the Department of Health. Ndlovu says such services cannot be used to their full potential unless patient care is prioritised.
And we always encourage our members that we might have issues with our line managers, but what is important is that when you are employed to provide service, you must provide service, because people that work in the healthcare center, they have signed an oath. When you have signed an oath, you must provide services as if you're providing to your mother and your brother. We're calling upon all those public servants that they must continue to provide this service. But in the same sentence, we are saying line managers must work together and trust the employees, because we believe without human capital, these facilities will not be as successful in terms of producing the results.
In international news, there's been international criticism of the decision by a Hong Kong court to sentence 45 democracy activists to up to 10 years in jail. They were found guilty of subversion for organizing an unofficial primary election in 2020 to choose pro-democracy election candidates. The US, UK and Australia and rights group have condemned the sentencing. Hong Kong Secretary for Security Chris Tang said no one should be allowed to use democracy as a pretext to escape the law.
We believe this sentencing reflects the severity of the crime. It shows that endangering national security must be heavily punished. The sentences send a clear message to the public that we have zero tolerance for any acts endangering national security, including subverting state power.
Recapping the top story, government is working with private partners to try to fast-track the eradication of pit latrines in schools by early next year. This is according to the Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwahobe. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, Springboks to announce squad this afternoon, and Federer pays tribute to Nadal for epic career. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 westbound in Benoni is where a fatal crash is reported near Tom Jones Street. The road's been closed and traffic is diverted at Snake Road. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. Main Reef Road westbound in Amalgam has a crash reported near Dorado Avenue. Santon Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive, and the N1 northbound in Centurion has a crash before Botha Avenue exit reported. In KZN, Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. The R102 Andrew Zondo Road southbound in Amanzimtoti has delays towards Athlone Park due to diversion volumes from the N2 southbound closure. You also have to expect delays through Prospection area. That's due to traffic diverting from the N2 southbound closure, and expect delays through Isipingo due to vehicles being diverted from that N2 southbound closure. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Cronboom Road exit. The M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and that N1 inbound is slow moving towards the N7 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Table Mountain.
Safari Weekend on a high note with Final Analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 Rand, courtesy of Theodora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Okay, I'm not much of a lucky gambler, so I don't even get close to it. But if you're up for it, well, this is news for you, okay? 69 million rands in total is the estimated Powerball and the Powerball Plus jackpots, and that could turn this Tuesday for you into a day to remember. Now, play Powerball for an estimated 65 million rands and Powerball Plus for an estimated 4 million rands today. What you need to do is get your tickets in store on nationallottery.coza, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120* and then 7529# for USSD. Panda Pusha Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So yesterday we had this conversation regarding Operation Dudula and the issue of the spaza shops, which I'll get to in a moment. Let me just remind you, I know you have lots of views regarding the conversation about the G20 summit, G20 leaders summit, G20 social, and the issue that we had regarding Stilfontein mines or the miners and the conversation with the legal representative on their behalf. Now, what's your opinion? Because this is the National Pulse. What for you are the issues that got your pulse rate racing today? Let me hear it. We'll take your call shortly, 086 000 2032, and I'll play WhatsApp, text or voice notes, 0614 104 107. Also feel free to post it on our social media platforms. I'll certainly pick it up. Right. Okay, so yesterday, Operation Dudula gave their point about effectively protesting enough to turn away the possibilities of any chance of a foreign national, the key word is foreign national, coming up to have their business or spaza shop registered. Right. So what's happened today? Well, Puseletso Mokoena is the SABC News reporter on the scene. Appreciate your time, Puseletso. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Okay, I understand there was a press conference later on this afternoon, but you visited the scene before the presser, right? What did you see?
Yes, certainly. We went to the Civic Center in Jabulani, Soweto, whereby when we got there, we found members from the Operation Dudula and Patriotic Alliance and members of the community, as well as South African owners of spaza shop, like spaza shop owners, South African owners, spaza shop owners who are South African. So we found them there outside the Civic Center, to making sure that they do not allow entrance for foreign national spaza shop owners here in South Africa, to ensure that they do not enter the premises to register their businesses. And when we got there, the gates were closed. They were over the gates, ensuring that they check each and every car that gets inside the premises if there are any foreign nationals who are coming to register their businesses. As you can remember, that this is after President Cyril Ramaphosa gave spaza shops to register their businesses 21 days. So Patriotic Alliance, as well as Operation Dudula, they are against that mandate of the president, saying that they cannot allow foreign nationals to register their businesses here in the country, because it feels like they are stealing local business from the locals.
Okay, so they were successful yesterday, and I'm talking about Operation Dudula, in effectively preventing foreign nationals from registering. Do you then take it that today they were successful as well, all things told?
It was successful. They ensured that no foreign nationals are entering the premises. Well, but to tell you one thing, when I was speaking to the president of Operation Dudula, Zandile Babula, she essentially, when she got there, she essentially told us that she saw, and I also saw, because I was there, I also saw that there are some South Africans who are unlawfully, obviously, coming to register the foreign-owned spaza shops with their names under their own identity. So they are helping foreign nationals to register their spaza shops under their own identity. Operation Dudula said it is going to ensure that they deal with them. It is going to ensure that they keep an eye to ensure that no South Africans are doing that unlawful activity.
Well, my mind goes back to a long, long time ago in apartheid South Africa, where people who were black, all shades of black, African, coloured, Indian, had to get white nominees to buy property on their behalf to be able to have these black people living in those properties. So you're seeing more of the same, and certainly Operation Dudula is suggesting that. How do they know that in advance? I mean, how do you stop people randomly and say, well, this one has a nominee-run business and this one is not?
They were essentially asking, there were a lot of them, from the community members. It was just a lot. So they were essentially asking each and every person they were questioning them. They were questioning each and every person who was coming inside who was entering the premises. They were questioning them. Those people have eyes all over. They saw everything, and they ensured that. And also, what I can also tell you, at the end of the day, the the services were shut, were stopped. Right now, as I speak with you, the registering process is stopped in Soweto until further notice because of the activities that were taking place today.
Okay. How is this going to help, government's cause, whether it's national, local, who want to speed up the issues of spaza shops being registered? I'm suggesting, therefore, that whether it's government or the police, right, that they appear to be powerless to prevent Operation Tudula to carry out their own operations.
Well, certainly, but what I can tell you that there was police visibility. Police visibility was there. The Metro Police was there just to ensure that the operation or with the picketing, it is running smooth. And Operation Tudula also mentioned that they on these 21 days that the president gave spaza shop owners to register, they will be outside the civic center just to ensure that no service that it is taking place, and also there was the police were there obviously just to ensure that there's no any violence taking place, and yes.
But yes, I mean the police were there to ensure there's no violence taking place. I understand there's been no violence, but the police also were not able to ensure safe passage for those that wanted to register. That means, could they give them a guard of honor to allow them free passage to register and to get into the building and get out? They can't do that, can they?
Nothing. They cannot. They couldn't.
Did you have a chance to chat to some of these people who've been turned away?
No, I couldn't because they were inside their cars. I wanted to talk to them, just to have a word with them. They were inside their cars, and they were also because these people were fighting them in a way. So they were also not in. They were also not in any mood to speak because there were some. They even wanted to throw rocks at their cars. So it was just It was just chaos.
Thank you for your time. There we are. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll play some of the clips from the press conference that took place later on, right? I think from Leogang Magile, I stand to be corrected. We'll double check on all of that later on. But Puseletso Mokoena, thank you for your time. SABC News reporter covering the scene. And it's an interesting one. There's the foreign nationals, there's the locals. They've been asked to register or else. And you got Operation Tudula, and we chatted to them yesterday. Please listen to that podcast. Go to safm.co.za. You can listen to it. They're very clear. They do not want foreign nationals, any foreign nationals, to register. Today, some of them have gone back. We've also had local nationals going to register, and they've prevented them from doing so. And apparently, Operation Tudula believes some of the locals are registering on behalf of the foreign nationals. Either way, the police can't give them the safe escort to do just that. Where do you stand on this issue in terms of what is developing there? 0614 104 107. Yeah, send me a WhatsApp. Tell me what gets your pulses racing today. I'm sure somebody certainly does. I've got some calls. Uma in Pretoria. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Afternoon. I just wanted to comment on Yasmin's stance.
Yes.
Regarding I feel she is not telling the truth because Atlanta Mache, the spokesperson of SAPS, has indicated that they are not blocking anyone to assist those Zamazamas, but it is the Zamazamas themselves who do not want to come out because they do not want to be arrested. So the impression that she's giving, it is as if, there is some blockage that is coming either from government or from the police. So that is totally not the truth. And even her tone of voice, it's like she does not see anything wrong about what the Zamazamas are doing. I think it will be proper for her to accept that it is wrong what they are doing. At least let the Zamazamas or whoever they are working for negotiate with government or the police.
Well, I think, to be fair to her, it's not like she's saying she sees nothing wrong. She said if they're illegal, they must actually be tried. They must go to court to face the law. She said that, but they can't be tried while underground. They have to be tried upstairs in a court of law. In the meantime, she says, the Constitution guarantees life to all people who live in this country, right? And therefore, the first priority from a South African perspective is to first guarantee their lives and then get them to face court. I mean, that's essentially what she's saying.
Okay, but then let them come out then. Let them go and be tried.
Okay, well, that's really the point. Omar, thanks for that. Let's get another comment from Innocent in Ladybrand. Hello.
Hey, Dr. Ashraf.
Doctor, okay, thank you. Honorary, maybe, yeah.
You deserve it, remember, eh?
You're very kind. Go ahead.
You know what I'm saying, Ashraf? I don't want to be long in this issue of illegal miners or illegal mines, whichever will be the truth of it. But what is in my mind is that what kind of education do we inculcate into our children? Then it's on there. But I want to talk about with you about.
Okay, you have to be quick because we're going on to an ad break. Okay, so we
okay.
Quick, yeah.
Okay, let me be quick. Did you know that Donald Trump is going to refrain the money that he gave to the Ukraine, and he's going to utilize it to his own country?
I don't know. I mean, who knows? You know,
okay.
He said lots of things. Let him get into office in January. Then we'll see exactly what he's saying. You know, lots of politicians make comments and statements before they get into power. Whether they play through with it, we don't know. What we do know, he's been cozy with Russia compared to the current outgoing now U.S. administration. So that much we absolutely do know that, right? Thanks for that. Thanks for that call. Innocent it is. Right, maybe time for one more WhatsApp amongst the many that we've had. Here we go.
Oh, it's Matthews again. Please, Ashraf, tell your guest, we can't risk sending our policemen down there because these illegal foreigners don't want to come out. The police have got a lot of job to do on the ground, not under the ground. I hope she get the message.
Well, remember, it's not just her, it's the legal organization she represents. But she made the point, which is important, if many people die there, would we not have a Marikana situation once again? And that's the one that she's alerting us to. Does she have a point?
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Svali Weekend on a high note with Final Analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 Rand, courtesy of Theodora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
So let me put this forward to you and draw on that Marikana example that Yasmin Omar, the attorney for the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution, made the point that with regard to Marikana, now she didn't say this, but there were many examples of these miners protesting, and some of them may have done wrong, and I'm not saying they have. You need to listen to me what I'm saying. But while we had this ongoing debate about miners and about wages and wage demands, bottom line, South Africa, effectively, the police took it upon themselves to say, hold it, we can't let this continue. And there was a shootout and many people died. And she's saying, after the event, there were lots of sorries, but this could have been avoided. Now, the point she was making is, can't this be avoided? At no stage, my understanding was that saying, hey, these illegal miners are all there legally. She's saying, no, in fact, they can be tried in a court of law, but they can't be tried downstairs in a mine. So my point is, does she have a point? Do you foresee a possibility of a Marikana situation developing here if this continues? It's certainly something for you to just reflect on, as we always do here on the National Pulse, not just look at the obvious, what's beyond the obvious here. In the meantime, the civil society demands that the President Ramaphosa amends the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act And why? Well, to end gender-based violence in the country. It's a big deal, we know that. Now, the advocacy groups such as the Call to Action Collective, well, they've urged immediate reforms to the NCGBVF Act to honour commitments made to the victims of gender-based violence as well as femicide. Let's find out what actually are these promises and where to from here. Kayan Leung is with me, the head of strategic litigation and gender equality programs at the Lawyers for Human Rights. Kayan, appreciate your time. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon to the listeners. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So maybe take us a step back in terms of what you talked about, promises made that were not kept.
Sure, thank you. It's a great question. So, of course, you listeners would be familiar that in August 2018, thousands of people, women and gender non-conforming people, marched across the street to ensure that the president took and received 24 demands, acknowledging the gravity of gender-based violence and femicide in the country. What, of course, happened after that is we had a national summit in November 2018, and following that was a national strategic plan that was essentially the roadmap to addressing gender-based violence and femicide in the country. That was introduced in 2020. Now, the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and the Act is intended to be the robust framework to combat GBVF and ensure that several critical elements of the NSP are implemented. But the current Act has a number of elements that are missing, which is agreed and contained within the National Strategic Plan. Essentially, that will weaken the structure, which is the Council's capacity to achieve its intended goals. And there are serious defects within the current legislation, which I'm happy to get into.
Okay, perhaps let's do that now. Go ahead and tell us. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So as a starting point, as I've mentioned, the National Strategic Plan was co-created with multi-sectoral partners, and that was signed off by the President in 2020. The first issue is that there is an exclusion of a funding framework for the National Strategic Plan on a GBVF fund. So one of the major elements of the NSP was the establishment of a dedicated national fund on GBVF intended to provide financial resources to the plan itself, so prevention, support initiatives, etc. The current legislation omits any mention of this fund. And we are arguing that the establishment of a fund is required, and whilst the Parliament and government has said that no, that requires separate legislation, essentially the omission of this leaves the Council without a clear process for allocating resources, severely hampering its ability to implement the NSP. We currently have a private sector-led GBV fund, a response fund, but that was always intended to be firstly interim, and secondly, government funds are not part of that process. So what's the difficulty now is that it's not a coordinated effort of direction and flow of funds. Right now, government's doing their own thing where there have been reports where departments are not implementing the NSP, so those funds aren't ring-fenced. It kind of moves from budget to budget and whatever's urgent on the day, it will change. I think more importantly, though, is that the current issues on the legislation speaks to a lack of empowered accountability mechanisms with an integrated governance performance indicator and consequence management. So the envisioned institutional framework that would hold all role players and stakeholders accountable, empowering people to demand accountability across government departments, that has been removed, and it's been largely tied to a single mandate of a department rather than encouraging collaboration and coordination of sectors. Now, it was very clear in that National Strategic Plan that we were trying to avoid this, and yet we currently have our legislation where the National Council is now reporting to the Minister of the Department of Women and Youth and Persons with Disabilities, which they specifically in the National Strategic Plan said that they are trying to avoid.
So here's the last thing. I mean, just on this one, before we need to wrap up, I must just advise you, Kayan, in terms of your demands that you make to the president, right, do you get any sense that whether it's the president or the relevant departments, that they are on side with regard to your demands for changes, or they will simply hear you out and end of discussion?
That's a great question. And I would like to say that actually members of civil society broadly, and not only the Call to Action Collective, had an over 2-hour meeting with the Minister and the DG of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities now. We have been advised that the President has instructed that even with possible defects in the legislation, they intend to proceed with implementation. And we, as civil society, we're saying that we all are invested in seeing that gender-based violence and femicide is addressed adequately. But with the current legislation in place, you will see an ineffective structure where we cannot hold people accountable, departments, and we're going to see the same issues. There was a report recently released, I think it was yesterday, on the new stats on gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa. In short, we're seeing an increase of the incidences on a daily basis. So intervention is urgent, but it also needs to be done effectively and well. We can't have mechanisms and failed structures as we have seen in the past, unfortunately, in government, where people do whatever they like with funds and nobody's held accountable. I mean, we've had commissions on state capture on this very issue of inability.
I'm going to leave it there because time has run out, and I say that very intentionally because you hope within the fight against gender-based violence, time also must not ever run out. And it's a big, big issue indeed. Kayan Leung, the head of strategic litigation and gender equality programs at the Lawyers for Human Rights. Question is, what does the government do next? The ball's in your court, isn't it? For 30 years, the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In your news headlines, Gauteng MEC for Finance and Economic Development, Lebogang Maile, says municipalities in his province will be intervening in the inspection of spaza shops through the development of building inspectors, environmental health officers, fire inspectors, as well as town regional planners. Government is working with private partners to try to fast-track the eradication of pit latrines in schools by early next year. This is according to the Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Kwagube. And speaking at Botswana's State of the Nation address, President Duma Boko says that despite the challenges that the country faces, they will overcome. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gous.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound and four-ways is queuing towards the Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash reported near Van Buren Road. Witkoppen Road eastbound in North Riding has a crash reported near River Bend Road. And the N12 westbound in Benoni is where a fatal crash is reported near Tom Jones Street. The road's closed and traffic is being diverted at Snake Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound in Prospection is closed at Joyner Road due to structural damage at the Mbongo-Ntwini River Bridge. Expect diversions and heavy delays. Victoria Embankment eastbound has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions between Joe Slovo Street and Dorothy Nyembe Street until the 22nd of November. Brook Street northbound is closed between Anton Lebede Street and Dr. Pixley Kaseme Street for demolition works at the China Mall site. In Mpumalanga, the N4 in Kamwatiput at Limpopo border post, check before travel to confirm border operations due to unrest on the Mozambique side. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Harold Drive southbound is queuing towards the R300 highway. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Yiptiaga Avenue, and Bafana will host South Sudan in an AFCON qualifier match at DHL Stadium this evening. Kickoff is at 6 p.m, so expect delays on local routes throughout the area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So the Boks they have this knack of keeping on winning, and they're playing against a team that's just keeping on losing, if that's the right grammar. I'm talking of the Welsh team, but there's a squad announcement, right?
Yes, Rassie Erasmus just announced his match day 23 squad, and Cameron Hanekom is set to become the 12th Springbok to make his test debut this season after being named on the replacement bench by coach Rassie Erasmus. Jaden and Jordan Hendricks are the first set of brothers to appear together since Dan and Robert Duprieff, who featured against Wales in Washington at the start of the 2020 2018 season. And the team also features a new lock combination of fit again Jean Klein and Franco Mostert, while the only change in the loose trio is at flank, where Alrik Lowe replaces Peter Steph du Toit, who is nursing a shoulder niggle, and will start alongside captain Siya Kolisi. Meanwhile, Springbok legend Tendai Beast Mtawarira expects to see another dominant Bokke performance as they round up their Castle outgoing traditional European tour this coming weekend.
Yeah, no, obviously, Wales will also be desperate. They've been struggling, but I think we can take a lot of confidence. We have a lot of depth. There's a lot of positives, So I'm sure Rusty will ring the changes next week and give the other guys a chance. So I think everybody in that team is hungry. So whoever he puts on the field is doing the job. So I'm sure they'll do the job next week again.
In tennis, Roger Federer says that Rafa Nadal made the whole tennis world proud during his epic career as he paid tribute to his former rival before his retirement. Nadal will play his singles match today in the 2024 Davis Cup in the tie that pits Spain against the Netherlands. Meanwhile, Nadal said that he could keep playing for another year just to say goodbye to every tournament, but doesn't have the ego to do a farewell tour. In football, Bafana coach Hugo Bruce insists that they will not be taking their AFCON qualifier against South Sudan tonight lightly, although the fixture is a dead rubber, with South Africa having already booked their ticket to Morocco next year. Even before beating Uganda last Friday, the national team mentor emphasized the significance of winning again.
I think you are looking to two very happy men after our qualifying game against Uganda last Friday. At the other end, you are also looking at two men who are still not satisfied. Satisfied because we want to win the game of tomorrow. This is not a friendly game. For us, it's an important game because we want to be first in the group. And we also want to show something, if my information is right, to the crowd who will be tomorrow in the stadium. So we got two amazing evenings in Bloemfontein and in PE with a crowd in the stadium and with a nice win. So we will do that again tomorrow here in Cape Town. That means that we are still motivated for the game of tomorrow. And again, it's very important for us that we can finalize those qualifiers as first in the group. It should be the cherry on the top.
Well, still staying with football, the Confederation of African Football have confirmed that the Women's Africa Cup of Nations draw will be held on Friday in Morocco. The draw for the 13th edition of the tournament will commence at 9 p.m. South African time and will be held at the Mohammed VI Technical Center in Saleh. The 2024 competition was scheduled to be played in June-July this year, but clashed with the Olympic Games in Paris, and then the WAFCON was then postponed to July 2025. In cricket, Australia's mouthwatering clash with India sees the sides go head-to-head in 5 tests over 6 weeks, with the Taurus eyeing a third straight series triumph for Down Under. Only England in the 1880s, West Indies a century later, and South Africa more recently have achieved that feat, and to do so against the current holders of the World Test Championship title would be a considerable accomplishment. Then finally, in motorsport, Las Vegas will host the finale of next year's all-female F1 Academy Series after races on 3 continents. Las Vegas was one of the 3 new venues listed on the 7-round 14-race 2025 calendar, along with China's Shanghai as the opener in March and Montreal. Now, the series uses 1.4-liter engined F4 cars with a top speed of 240 kilometers per hour and is currently in its 2nd season. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now.
So I want to ask you something very quickly. So Nadal's now finished and clear, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, wonderful, wonderful career. But here's a thought to you. Have you ever had a sportsman, doesn't matter which sport, that you followed that sport primarily because of that person? That means this person was able to just so inspire you in that sport. And when that person retired, and you just stopped watching. Because I have a person, but have you got one?
Stopped watching sport after
that
they
particular
retired.
sport, it could be that sport, for example.
Well, I didn't stop, but Roger Federer and Ibra,
Okay.
I loved them to bits.
Well, there you are. So I didn't stop. For me, it has to be Muhammad Ali.
Of course.
I watch boxing now. I can tell you now, with nowhere near the level of enthusiasm as I watched when Muhammad Ali reigned. And I think there was a period when they interviewed about 100 footballers to say who's the one person in the world they most want to meet. This is before Nelson Mandela was released. I think 90% said Muhammad Ali. He was incredible. So, yeah.
So you don't watch boxing anymore?
Very little.
You didn't even watch Mike Tyson lose this past weekend?
That's not boxing. No, bye-bye. So I didn't watch that.
SAFM, playing the music you want to hear.
Imagine a South Africa where every child born today and tomorrow and the next day and the next had enough love, enough food, enough safety and brain power today and tomorrow and the next day and the next. Together, we will change their future. Join us by visiting
holdmyhand.org.za. That's holdmyhand.org.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
So is there a sportsman that you've followed so much, but you've now sort of watched less of that sport because he or she has retired? Mine, of course, is Muhammad Ali. You tell me yours. Makwe Masilela is with us, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good to connect as always. So first up, what Coronation Fund Managers has their results, and then tell me more about the local and global markets.
Afternoon to you and to your listeners. Yes, Coronation, their revenue is up 7%. Ashraf, profit as headline earnings per share up 245%, with dividend per share increasing by 38%. Not surprising that the share price is now up 3%. And operating environment has been volatile and challenging for several years, but their guys consistently delivered value to their clients, and their asset under management increased by 11% to just over 600 billion. And in South Africa, asset returns has been very robust, fueled by the GNU, and market participants are watching for any further news around Trump's planned administration. Traders eager to see who will be the Treasury Secretary and who will be in charge of trade, and I guess an experienced team will be positive for investor confidence. And traders are watching the escalation of Russia-Ukraine conflict as Putin authorized the use of nuclear weapons should there be any massive attack on its soil. That's a retaliation to Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to use US-made long-range weapons, and bonds are climbing and stocks are retreating, and the US dollar edged higher as Ukraine made its first strike inside Russia using Western-supplied missiles. Ashraf will hope that Russia will get a call from China not to use any nuclear weapons, and safe haven assets rally as US-Russia tension spike over Ukraine. Oil traders are balancing their restart production when it comes to key Norwegian oil field, and also that escalation in geopolitical tension. We see Brent crude is flat, now is trading at $73 a barrel, and as a safe haven asset, the yellow metal is extending a recovery. Gold is up 0.6% at $2,628, platinum up 0.5% at $970. Global stocks, Ashraf, are under pressure with the local bonds flat, and we've been held by our resources, which are up 1.7%. The rand weakened to 0.6% against the US dollar, is now 18.04, 22.83 against the pound, and 19.12 against the euro.
Perfect. Thanks for that. We'll catch up again with you tomorrow, Makwe. Thanks for your time as always. Right. Let's move on to another important issue, and he talks about matric results after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, so we've all been through this experience, down the generations, right? Matric results come out. It's fantastic if you do well, but for many, many people, they don't do well. And there's either omissions, or they only get like 1A, or they just about pass, or they don't do enough. And this fact that that's the one thing that is very, very public. I mean, can you think about anything else besides election results and maybe sporting league tables that are as public as matric results and maybe yearly company results? I can't think of anything. Well, you tell me if you can. In the meantime, I understand this is important. Now, the information regulator, well, they've directed the Department of Basic Education, and this is important, not to publish the results of this year's matrics, right, in newspapers. And there's a whole lot of ifs around that. Let's find out more about it with Advocate Pansy Tlakula, who's the chairperson of the Information Regulator. Advocate Tlakula, good to connect with you as always. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you and good evening.
Thank you. So it's interesting. So, I mean, is this correct? You've now directed the department not to publish, and there's a directive that they have to adhere to?
Yeah, but this did not come out of the blue. It came after we conducted an assessment, and our assessment involved us determining whether the way that they process personal information, particularly insofar as publication of matric results in the newspaper is concerned, whether that is in compliance with POPIA or not. And that assessment then concluded that they can publish matric results in the newspaper provided they obtain the consent of the parents of the learners or the consent of the learners if those learners are over the age of 18.
Okay, and failing that, they can't. So if we look at the present tense right now for the 2024 results will be published, I would think, if anything, just in the new year, is that going to be a no-go now for this year?
Yes, we say no. If they have not obtained consent, they can't. But going forward, they should ensure that they put in place a system that will enable them to obtain consent. But if they can't put that system in place, then they cannot publish.
Interesting. As part of this, I understand that your organization believes that the Department of Basic Education may have breached, in fact, personal information processing in the past, right?
Well, not necessarily. You must remember that POPIA came into effect really in 2021. We had been toing and froing with the department on this issue of publication. But eventually, after the toing and froing, we decided to conduct this assessment, which definitely came to the conclusion that processing or publication in the newspaper without the consent, I think it's not a general blanket no, do not publish. They can publish provided that they obtain the consent of the parents or guardian. We looked at other, legal basis for publishing matric results. For instance, the Act says you can publish without obtaining consent of the parents if you can prove that that publication is in compliance with a public obligation imposed on you by a public law. Now, we did not find any law which obliged them to publish matric results. Our law also says you can publish if you can prove that the publication of the results you can publish without the consent of the parents if you can prove that that publication protects the legitimate interest of the learners.
Okay. Has there been reaction from the Department of Basic Education?
No, we haven't heard from the department.
So you don't actually know whether they are supportive of your position or not?
No, we don't know.
All right.
We haven't heard.
I noticed there's been reaction very quickly from AfriForum, and I quote, they want to challenge your position, and I'm quoting Eleanor Bailey. She's saying, labeling it as a violation of individuals' rights to privacy does not make sense, as only examination numbers appear in the media, meaning not the actual name of the person. Do they have a case?
Well, we haven't heard from them officially, but what we can say that our assessment revealed that the examination numbers are sequential and they are published sequentially in the media. What I mean by that, if your number is 1 and mine is 2, you are sitting in front of me. Number 3 is sitting behind me. and they are published in that order in the newspaper. So I can decipher from the newspaper, because you are number one, what your results are, and because I'm sitting behind you, you can also decipher my
Okay,
results.
so there is a way to
So it's
find
not
out anyway,
random.
yes.
It's not random. The publication is not random. The numbers are sequential.
Okay, got that.
That's why we're also saying in future they must randomize the numbers as well if they want to publish in addition to obtaining the consent.
Okay,
of
this
the
is
parents.
so interesting. I'm just thinking about newspapers who may be complaining on the basis of the tremendous amount of advertising they would lose from those supplements that come out every single year. And the schools all advertise and they pay for advertising there, so they would lose big money out of this. Do you get a sense at all whether schools and learners will follow your suggestion, that is, grant permission? I mean, do you have any sense of how many may do so?
I mean, I don't know. It's really up to the parents to consent or not consent, and it's up to the department to put a system in place which will enable the parents to consent or not to consent.
Okay, tell you what, fascinating indeed in terms of how this develops and plays out. Advocate Pansy Tlakula, appreciate your time, chairperson of the Information Regulator. And just to recap, particularly if you have a, well, it could be you, but it could be one of your children who are writing matric this year. At this point in time, it's too late. Your children will not have their names or their numbers published in newspapers this year. Before it was names, remember, but now even the numbers. No, it's a directive from the Information Regulator, and in future, it could only be published if you or your 18-year-old plus child, student that is, would give them permission in advance. And all of that is governed or driven by the POPIA Act in terms of protecting of personal information. So what about you? Next year, this year's too late. Next year, would you support that if you were asked to sign over the right to get your name or your number published publicly? Or would you say, well, since I don't have to, I don't want to. I just need to know for myself, and I'll share that with my family. What a fascinating thought indeed. This is the National Pulse.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
In fact, I'm looking at this. Someone said, yes, let me read this. I stopped Formula One after Schumacher. Tennis when Pete Sampras started. Tennis when Sampras started, you stopped. Okay, that's interesting. But Schumacher, I think there's a point too. I must tell you again, I have a very superficial interest in Formula One now. But there was a period, yes, when Schumacher reigned supreme, that I really, really watched Formula One big time and counted every second. Because you know exactly what I mean about that. So give me your thoughts. Did you stop watching any sport because, or watched it less because that sportsman or woman called it a day? Let's talk about business strategy now, and we do this every week around this time. My guest today is Dr. Ronel Blom, who's the Dean of Research at Regent Business School. Ronel, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Much appreciated.
I listen to you every day.
Well, now we're listening to you, certainly for now. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
One of the features that we're talking about now in terms of business strategy is give us some sense about networking being a business strategy. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so we thought we needed to think about networking in a slightly different way. But I think networking amongst organizations, among institutions, and amongst businesses and organizations are really, really important. So I'd like to talk to you about our project, which was recently launched. It's called the Tribe Partnership for Good. And the three partners which also involved this whole networking are Umhlanga Business Network and Region Business School and several not-for-profit organizations. And the idea is to use our networking skills and to leverage those networking skills to create something new.
Okay, tell me more about how it plays out.
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish what are the business strategies that the MPOs in particular need, and then we try and help them with those particular strategies. So, many MPOs are really, really good in terms of their social value, but they don't have many business strategies necessarily, and they remain highly reliant on funding. And I mean, it's a constant refrain that they are looking for funding. And so we thought that maybe what we could do is to actually say, all right, let's capacitate them with business strategies, including the networking amongst themselves, to leverage this partnership.
It's interesting you talk about, NPOs versus a business, because I would think that for many people, literally, an NPO is not a business. And you're saying, whichever way we want to talk about it, they still need to have a business strategy.
Yes, they do indeed have to have a business strategy. In fact, we talk about business strategies in the form of a social entrepreneurship strategy. And the social entrepreneurship is definitely for good. It's intended to uplift communities, but at the same time, it's also trying to be self-sustaining. And in order to be self-sustaining, you have to have business strategies.
So social entrepreneurship compared to entrepreneurship as we know it,
yes.
I mean, would that essentially be the same? Meaning, are they both allowed to make a profit, or is there a significant difference in that?
Yes, indeed. MPOs, I think, are not aware of this, but they are allowed to make a profit as long as that profit is fed back into the institution or into the organization. So it's not a profit for a dividend or a profit for a payout for something, but it's a profit that is actually pushed back into the organization. So yes, the whole idea around social entrepreneurship is that yes, you're allowed to make a profit, or you can make a profit, or indeed you should make a profit, but the way that you use it in terms of a social entrepreneurship organization, it would go back into the organization directly.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you've mentioned that. And, one of the reasons when we created this feature, as opposed to saying, let's call it entrepreneurship, we intentionally said business strategy because we felt that everybody knows what entrepreneurship, open up a business is entrepreneurship, but business strategy is the cornerstone of being successful at what you do, right? And we want to focus on that. So what advice then, if you can give us some specific advice in broad speak around developing a successful business strategy for whatever it is that your business is?
Yeah, so I think you need to understand who you're dealing with, and you need to, always start with the kind of who is it that I'm actually trying to reach, who is it that I'm trying to help or serve in this case. So understand the needs of those people and then develop strategies around that to actually support whatever the needs are. So I think that's the first thing that you need to do. The second thing is then to actually develop a sustainable business model or a sustainable financial model, if you like, which will support the organization to serve the people that they intend to serve, and then that should be coupled with marketing strategies. It should be coupled with a good business plan. It should be coupled with all those things that we typically talk about in establishing a business. But it is also appropriate and relevant to a social entrepreneurship organization or an NPO.
And it goes without saying. If I think about building a building, you first have to do the architectural plans. I mean, is that the same principle for a business? You have to put it down in paper, even though you're going to make some changes. We know that without putting it in paper and just say, I'll think it through, and that's what I'm going to do next. Doesn't work, does it?
Yeah. Sometimes it's building the aeroplane while you're flying it. So it's yes, you have a plan, but the plan will also evolve as you actually implement it. And I think that's the kind of approach that we'd like to establish, is to keep an open mind as to what opportunities may arise. Because I think NPOs in particular, they're very, very passionate about what they do, but they don't look around them and see, okay, what opportunities may there be for me and for my organization to actually leverage what surrounds me. And I think it's almost like having an entrepreneurial mindset, but without having a profit mindset, if I can explain it that
And
way.
lastly, as we got on news time, I mean, you're saying, in fact, of what you guys do right now at Region Business School, you have this project where you can assist NPOs, right? And if so, how can they connect with you?
No. So we have been in connection with a group of NPOs in the Greater Durban area, but we intend to actually expand the project to the other provinces as well. So this is a kind of a pilot, and if it goes down well, then we'll expand it to Gauteng and certainly to Western Cape and other provinces as well.
Well, I think it's a great idea. Looking forward to seeing exactly what you do. Try Partnership for Good. Dr. Ronelle Blom, thanks for your time. Dean of Research at Region Business School, and now you have every reason more to listen even again. Even your own podcast will be up just now, safm.co.za. You can catch that too. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Coates.
Thank you, Ashraf. Municipalities to intervene in inspecting spaza shops and a deadline for the eradication of pit toilets. Good day to you. The Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC Lebogang Maile says municipalities in his province will be intervening in the inspection of spaza shops through the use of building inspectors, environmental health officers, fire inspectors, as well as regional town planners. The MEC briefed the media on Gauteng's strategy to assist spaza shop owners in registering and adhering to the required business standards.
The aim of this is to ensure that local enterprises meet the highest standards of safety so as to prevent the recurrence of the crisis that has wreaked havoc in communities. Businesses operating in Gauteng communities are required to register over the coming days. The registration process has been simplified to ensure that business owners are not consumed in red tape while simultaneously ensuring that compliance is achieved.
Meanwhile, Operation Dadula says it's disappointed that there are some South Africans who are assisting foreign nationals to register their spaza shops under their identity. This comes after President Cyril Ramaphosa mandated the spaza shop owners must register their businesses within 21 days to avoid closure. His announcement came amid the recent spate of food poisoning incidents that have claimed the lives of over 20 children. Operation Dadula leader Zandile Dabula was speaking during a picket outside the Jabulani Civic Centre in Soweto.
I'm really disappointed. When I got here, there were some few South Africans that have been chased away because they are assisting foreign nationals to come and get permits here. They're doing it under their own identity. I mean, South Africans, we keep fighting this for you guys, but you keep turning us down. I'm pleading that can South Africans stop? If we find them in your property and you have registered that company under your name, we are going to make sure that the law enforcement deals with you, and harshly so.
Government's working with private partners to try and fast-track the eradication of pit toilets in schools by early next year. That's according to the Basic Education Minister, Siphiwe Gahube. She says the deadline for the total eradication of pit toilets in schools is set to be completed by the end of March next year.
Some of the work that is done by corporate and social partners who are helping us clear this backlog. In fact, yesterday I was in rural KwaZulu-Natal handing over flush toilets at Deda Primary School that had only basic pit toilets for many years for over 600 children who go to that school. And so Breadline and other partners are also partnering with government to say there's a huge backlog that we need to make sure that we are targeting so that the deadline that has been set for us for next year, that we can really try to meet.
The Weather Service has issued a warning of severe thunderstorms for parts of the Eastern Cape tomorrow. Provincial Transport Department spokesperson Unathi Binkosi says the predicted storms with heavy downpours could result in localized flooding. He says the storms are expected in areas over the Amatole and Owa Tambo districts, as well as the Buffalo City Metro.
So we're calling on road users in particular to be extra vigilant. Postpone or even delay your travel where it is possible. And this time of the year is also a headache for us because these floods add to the already bulging road infrastructure backlog in the province.
Botswana's new president, Duma Boko, says despite the challenges the country faces, they will overcome it. The Botswana State of the Nation address is currently underway, the annual address where the president outlines the nation's progress, challenges as well as presents plans for the upcoming year. Boko says there will be an investment to improve service delivery for all citizens.
As your president, I am aware of the challenges facing our country. We are looking economic uncertainty dead in the eye. Diamonds continue to account for about 80% of our foreign earnings, but we shall overcome. The already high, almost 27% unemployment rate continues to worsen, but we shall overcome. The declining birth rate creates an existential threat to our future, but we shall overcome. We have only 78 years of coal reserves left at the current usage rate, but we shall overcome. The government is facing cash flow problems, but we shall overcome. We have to wrestle with social and infrastructural issues, but we shall overcome.
The top story, the Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC says municipalities in his province will be intervening in the inspection of spaza shops. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Proteas set for Hugo Bruce set for 40th game as Bafana coach. Springbok squad announced to face Wales, and Federer pays tribute to Nadal for epic career. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the R24 westbound in Edenvale is queuing towards the N12 highway merge. The N1 northbound in Centurion has a crash reported before Botha Avenue exit. In Midrand, the N1 northbound slow moving towards Samrand Road, and Summit Road westbound has delays at Blue Hills. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg has a stationary vehicle reported after Ashburton Road exit, and the R102 northbound in Verulam has a crash reported near Wick Street. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is queuing towards the R300 highway. The M5 southbound slow moving towards Krombum Road exit. The M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and the N1 inbound slow moving towards the N7 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.6 FM in Mthatha.
Back-to-back Women's T20 World Cup runners-up, the Proteas face England. They both want to walk away from Buffalo Park with big smiles. What a summer without cricket. This is the first Women's T20 International Contest, where summer cricket comes alive. South Africa clashes with England on Sunday 24 November at 2 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Certainly looking at some comment from people about the matric results now not being published unless it could be yourself or your parent giving permission for you to do just that. If they don't give permission, they cannot publish even your matric number. Okay, and yes, Champ from Midrand saying, Let me just pick it up. No, I think I've got that. Yeah, great hearing. I agree with the silence. No, I'm not too sure what that means. Okay, let me get back to that one there. On the issue of Ashraf, not publicizing matric pass rates is a new form of woke BS. You know what BS means? Anyone with a backbone that is proud and take accountability will agree to the information be published. Really? But we don't do that in 50 other segments of South African society. We really don't. Do you actually go to gym and you find every week when you go to gym they give a published list of who's become fitter in a month? We just don't do that. We do that in some things only. And what about the anguish and the anxiety of people who think they've underperformed and what happens? And you know it's happened to people, right? So there's more on that. Give me your thoughts. More to come. By the way, I should tell you, we'll be picking up some sound from MEC Lebogang Maile's presser around the spaza shops and how to deal with that issue. Then later on in the feature we called Winning, we'll chat to Imzwakhe Mbude. And he will talk about fascinating awards that he's put together. In many ways, it's the type of awards that I speak about often, championing people who are best in class. So we'll talk about that later. But earlier on, we chatted to Yasmin Omar, the attorney representing the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution. She spoke for those miners who are trapped. Can I say trapped at the Stilfontein mines, and suggesting that South Africa, in some way or the other, if they are there illegally, needs to lift them up, then try them, then convict them if that is the case. But to leave them there, vulnerable as they are, even if they've done wrong in the first instance, is not on. And it could well be echoes of Marikana. Well, that's her position. Many people, I know that, have commented here, have called in, have WhatsApped, have tweeted saying she's lost her head, she's emotionally involved in this thing. That's a complete no-no. So we thought, let's get another opinion on this issue. And the turn now is with Hassan Lorgat, who, is sometimes often calls in on the shows here on SAFM, but is a human rights activist with strong opinions about many things. Hassan, appreciate your time. You're connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf, and thank you for your interview with Operation Dudula yesterday, where you tried to show that the police were watching as people breaking the law. Yeah.
And I think that story has continued because I understand today people who want to register were prevented from doing so again. But that's another conversation. Let's get your take. Let's get your take on what's happened at Stilfontein Mines.
I think it's a violation of the South African Constitution. In the interim constitution, the post-amble in 1993 had a commitment to Ubuntu, and Ubuntu underwrites the Bill of Rights that we have. And it is not uncommon that you could get callers who say put the concrete, close them, leave them behind. They are reflecting in part their own hardships, and they're looking to beat up against someone. So that you can understand. But for leadership to do what leadership has done and to stoke that is unforgivable. So for me, that's the first point. My second point really is that the holder of a mining license, in terms of the MPRDA, the mining law, Article 56 says that as you get this mining right to prospect, to mine, etc., you already have to make plans when you will close the mine, right? At the beginning, you have that right. And then you commit yourself in 56E to rehabilitate the land as far as practicable to the natural state that it had before, and make sure it's sustainably developed. Then you get a closure certificate. This person must apply for a closure certificate. So when they tell you they can't find the people, right, is that a bad leadership, a dereliction of duty? Where are we stopping with illegality? Why is it that we look at illegality only when it affects the small person?
Okay, so let me just interject. I hear you. So you're saying, first of all, we should probably question the mines, right, that have allowed their mines to be disused, and then the ministry and the checks and balances from government or leadership all through the years. Not so much in this case, right, but all through the years. And that's another conversation. Then you're saying part of the opportunity that emerges when the checks and balances do not happen is people who are unemployed, starving, will commit to acts of illegal acts in this case here, no matter what, just to try and survive. And that's what's happened with these miners. Is that right?
I think you would do the same, Ashraf. I know you're a man of integrity. If your families, you've got no other options, you're going to try and look for ways of feeding them. But, the Auditor General pointed out around mine closures, let's stay for a little bit, in 2022, she produced a report and she said that the department had been doing a bad job at closing mines, and where they attempted to close them, they closed them badly. So I really think the Auditor General must be in your office. She is so good, so top of her game. And, so Tsakani Maluleke basically pointed this out, that they're not doing a great job. And I think that the ministry and the department have gone into hiding, right? This is their baby. They should be dealing with it and be more transparent to us to make sure that how mines are closed properly, what about artisanal mining legislation that they were supposed to be there, all those other things.
Okay.
But Ashraf, here's my big point that I want to raise with you. At 1970, and this is not a figure from a radical, from John Kane Berman, noted in 1970, right, about 70% of those working on the mines in this country were from Lesotho and Malawi and the neighboring countries. Now, don't we owe them a certain debt, right? You know that a lot of their benefits from these people working from there have been unclaimed, amounting to billions. I was at a talk the other day in Cape Town where King Letsie III basically made an appeal to say we give our poor, our labor to South Africa, and people are dying. What's happened to these benefits that are there? What's happened to the claims? Because the data keeping of the old Chamber of Mines was really poor in the government because they got cheap labor. When everyone says that Joburg and Egoli was built by gold and diamonds, they forget it was built on poor black labor from South Africa and the sub-region.
So if I can move on, I mean, so there's really two parts. One is you just made the point about governance or the lack of governance that has caused the problem in the first place. And I think it's an issue that we need to investigate further, certainly as this show, right? We must do so. Now, let's look at the reality right now. So there are miners who are underground. There's a sense of many people that they are either illegal foreign nationals, or they could be legal foreign nationals. But either way, what they're participating is an act is an illegal act. Okay, so they are underground. What is your understanding of what are they doing there, and why are they not coming up, and what should government be doing in the first place here?
Well, I think the lawyer is right. You can't judge a person before to determine the action. That's why you have a court of law, why you have a rule of law. You want to test the evidence before you, whether they are working for other syndicates, because how are these issues getting out onto the global market? There's a whole lot more complicated issues. Are these the pawns or whatever? But let me disabuse one particular fact. On the 2nd of November, Acting Commissioner Sibiya, in a press release, said that they had a number of people in Orkney coming out, 225 illegal miners coming out of the holes, etc., etc. Their statement ends by this saying the majority of those who've been arrested are inclusive of South Africans, Mozambicans, and Basotho nationals. Now, Ashraf, to be honest with you, that is it that we want hate when we think someone is not part of you? But I also want to challenge that. Lesotho has given to this country a lot, besides giving us water, right? And they are surrounded. Lesotho is in our stomach. When they stretch, they hit the next door, they hit one of the towns. We need to rethink the sub-region, right, to incorporate these countries more creatively. In fact, it used to be British South Africa, right? And they have contributed here. So the discussion is so narrow that Lesotho is surrounded by us. The people have died here, right? They are disabled in Lesotho, and their claims are not met. So clearly we need a bigger conversation.
All right,
here.
but I think before the bigger conversation is what happens now, right? So what are your thoughts? I mean, we've certainly heard the request from Yasmin Omar and many others that they need to be brought up and provided with relief, brought up and then taken to trial, as opposed to left there to die or to be smoked out, as we've certainly heard before, right? What are your thoughts in terms of the leadership from government, from the presidency, from the relevant departments, just in dealing with this narrow issue right now?
The president, a founder member of the NUM, knows the sub-region very well. The Minister of Mines was a former General Secretary as well of the NUM. They know what to do. But we outlawed the death penalty in 1995. We outlawed it because it's cruel and inhumane punishment. By saying what they are saying now, right, is cruel and inhumane. It's against the Constitution and the decisions we've taken in our Constitutional Court. They should take the people out, feed them. As someone said from Contralesa today, said, we have prisoners there who've raped and whatever in prison, but we give them meals while they serve their sentence. So clearly, we need that bigger conversation. But South Africans must think, this tall buildings you have here was not only built by South Africans.
Okay. Let me leave it with the last thoughts. Now, I'll go back to the very beginning and the point that you brought up. There are many people listening, and I'm talking South African nationals, right, who are listening, who are unemployed, and their families are unemployed, and they are disgruntled and they're disillusioned about so many things. And all they can see is none of the things that you've spoken about. All they can see is these are people who are in this country illegally doing illegal work. Why should we help them? If anything, to the government, can you please help me? Let them rot because they've made their own baby, to borrow a well-used phrase.
I understand the hardship that people, I work with poor communities in that. But the point is that you don't, often what we try to do is to make sure to see the other person in a similar condition as a comrade, a sister, a brother, and not necessarily enemy. So when people say, like when Dudula and others start saying that no foreigners, so what about the transnational corporations in the bigger economy, the bigger township, right? You don't want them to be here? Let's talk about how they regulate it, whether they're having illicit financial flows, whether they're paying their taxes. Let's have that conversation. But I understand when Dudula and others are rebel rousers of hate. Ordinary people feeling angry, yes, it's a crisis for us in the unions all over. We have to work with communities, but there should be employment, there should be livelihood creations. All that has to happen. People are talking through the stomach. I do not condemn them for that. But those who foment and manufacture hate, really, we should challenge them.
Okay, and quick answer, very quick answer. Could this be another Marikana if it's not addressed with leadership?
Well, it's condoning. In fact, one of the programs they were saying, put concrete over them. You're having ordinary people being mobilized for hate. That is worse than Marikana because, it's so generalized. Marikana could be tied to a police and some officials. Yeah, it is so free for all. It could bring us back to 2008 where every foreigner becomes a target. Okay. And I detest that.
Hassan Lorgat, appreciate your time. Thanks for your input and adding some value here to the National Pulse. Hassan Lorgat is a human rights activist and, as you said, does lots of work even amongst impoverished communities and unions in the country. Right, give me your thoughts further on as and it's not always what we do on air. You can also post comments on our social media platforms as well. Well, either way, something is certainly getting your pulses racing, isn't it?
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Susampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Dikwana Chametsi want to prove that they can swim in all kinds of tough circumstances and shock Masanda Wanda to be crowned the champions. But Bafana Bastard trust their superior game plan will deliver a trophy to the Yellow Nation. This is the Carling Knockout Final. Fagukes! Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ibola Lasemzansi, Makezi FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC on Saturday, 23 November, live on SABC1 at 5:30 p.m. and SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Imagine a South Africa where every child born today and tomorrow and the next day and the next had enough love, enough food, enough safety and brain power today and tomorrow and the next day and the next. Together, we will change their future. Join us by visiting
holdmyhand.org.za. That's holdmyhand.org.za.
So I'll tell you what, I'm certainly not inclined to play Powerball, but if you are, this is news for you, okay? 69 million rands in total estimated Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots could turn this Tuesday into a day for you to remember. Now, what you need to do is you play Powerball for an estimated 65 million rands and then the Powerball Plus for around 4 million rands. Buy your tickets now in store on the nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, we certainly have the conversations that moves us, right? And you certainly can tell me what moves you today. In the meantime, the Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC, that's Lebogang Maile, had a press conference today, and it's all linked to spaza shops, and he announced some plans around that, right? And that registration plans, remember. So first things first, we're going to play some clips from that press conference. And Maile spoke about the work that his department had put in, and something I've touched on before, the need for extensive consultation.
Objective of the interventions are to get hazardous pesticides off the street, to protect children from exposure to these substances, and to prevent future outbreaks. To ensure compliance, the President issued a directive that all spaza shops and food handling facilities must register with their respective municipalities within 21 days. He emphasized that any shop that is not registered within 21 days and does not meet all health standards and requirements will be closed. The Gauteng provincial government welcomes the intervention that have been announced by the President, which align with the interventions that had been proposed by the provincial leadership working with municipalities. Earlier this month, the Gauteng Department of Economic Development had an extensive consultation with Professor Hannah Andrea Rotha, the head of Environmental Health Division in the School of Public Health at the University of Cape Town, to gain deeper knowledge on the subject of pesticides as a means of determining the approach to the elimination of the identified pesticides in the death and the hospitalization of children in the province. In addition to this, the department relaunched Kondisi Shishini Lako, Fix Your Business, Lugisa Khobayahao, Mark Rech Jopiasech 8 campaign as a comprehensive program to address all aspects of illegality prevalent in the township economy.
So while this process continues, what happens to the spaza shops? Now, the MEC, Maile, well, he couldn't really answer that.
In November 2024, President Ramaphosa addressed the nation, where he announced decisive measures to address the recurring foodborne illnesses that have claimed the lives of at least 22 children across the country over the past few months. These include immediate closure of spaza shops implicated in the death and stricter regulations to protect communities. The President outlined 3 critical interventions to be implemented with immediate effect. The objective of the interventions are to get hazardous pesticides off the street, to protect children from exposure to these substances, and to prevent future outbreaks. To ensure compliance, the President issued a directive that all spaza shops and food handling facilities must register with their respective municipalities within 21 days. He emphasized that any shop that is not registered within 21 days and does not meet all health standards and requirements will be closed. The Gauteng provincial government welcomes the intervention that have been announced by the President, which align with the interventions that had been proposed by the provincial leadership.
And the MEC says he's going to hit the road.
We will visit every part of our province. We will visit
every ward. Whether we will be able to get into the door of every spaza shop, I don't think so. But we will be everywhere like Holy Spirit. We will be everywhere like a Holy Spirit. That's what we are going to endeavor to do. And because that's why it's not going to be the responsibility of those who are dealing with economic development only. Last week Sunday, some of you, Malendle, you were, I think you were there when the Premier was addressing. It was the Premier, the mayors, the MMCs. So as you can see now, the President. So with that reinforcement, it means we will have, and then you've got government officials. So I don't have to be the one doing the inspection at any given moment. It can be departmental officials, so that we don't say when we don't see the politicians and think it's not been done.
Okay, so that's it. Give us your comments, and we try as much as we can to take as many calls live or WhatsApp. But I'll also tell you, it doesn't stop you from also posting on our social media pages, particularly live on the Twitter feed, because that's the one that drives the news every single day. So get to that. Use the hashtag The National Pulse. Tag SAFM Radio. Do tag me, Ashraf Garda, and we'll certainly check it out. Would love to. By the way, podcasts of all that we do here available. Besides us tweeting it out and posting it on Facebook too, you can also check it out, safm.coza. Just go The National Pulse. You'll find all the podcasts of every single interview that we've done on this show. So basically you can't miss it, and it's a chance for you to share it with your friends and then start a debate amongst them regarding that content. 5:30 is the news headlines with Greg Host.
Quick look at the headlines. The Communications Minister says he's aware that withdrawing the SABC bill is disruptive, but believes it was justified given the weight of the matter. The Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC says municipalities in the province will be intervening in the inspection of spaza shops. And UNICEF says more than 200 children have been killed in Lebanon in the past 2 months. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Tell you what, we've been talking about the lotto off air, but I think if Bafana wins and wins the African Cup of Nations, well, we've only ever won it once, right? 1996. And I was at that stadium. If they win it again, that's like, yes, I was. Full house, 100,000 people in an 80,000 FNB stadium. And there's 2 goals from Mark Williams. Oh, I'm being very, very nostalgic. Let's do it again. What are you going to talk about now?
Well, talking about Bafana, Hugo Broos will lead Bafana into their 40th match under his tenure against South Sudan in the mother city this evening. Even though the match is a dead rubber, Broos says that he's not taking this game lightly, and he also says that he won't be making wholesale changes to allow French players to get a taste of international football.
I don't like taking this game as a friendly game, and when you start changing everything, that means that maybe also players will feel, look, he's chasing 6-7 players. So I don't want this. What I said in the beginning, I mean it. We want to be first, and we will try to put our best team tomorrow on the pitch.
Well, his starting lineup is out. Williams, Bazadine, Dotling, Gazana, Mudao, Obas, Mokoena, Apollos, Reyners, Maswangai, and Morena are in that starting lineup. And kickoff is at 6 p.m. As things stand, 44,676 tickets have been sold. Meanwhile, South Sudan coach Nicholas Dupier says that he has traveled to South Africa with only 15 players as they found the plane tickets too expensive to accommodate the whole team. He says facing a team like Bafana while they are in the midst of a challenging period off the field is a tough ask for his players, and the team that will be playing Bafana is one that was competing in Chan, so only local players and some of their best players not in the team according to the coach. Then in rugby, Springbok backline coach Mzwandile Stick says box winger Makazole Mapimpi deserves all the praise for the sacrifices and the tough journey he's had to reach his level. Stick was responding to questions about Mapimpi, equaling legendary centre Jacques Fourie and moving to the third joint place on the all-time list of try scorers for the Boks. Mapimpi's 32 tries came only in 46 test matches compared to Fourie's 32 in 72 tests. And Stick says that Mapimpi is the embodiment of hard work.
I think what Mapimps has achieved, and you look at his story, it's a very, very special story, because of, once again, I know it's not easy to just talk about it, because of Mapimpi. He knows his struggles, he knows his challenges, and I know one thing for sure: there's a lot of Mapimpis out there. For me, one thing that I can take from his story is that, irrespective of where you come from, if you make sure that you work hard, you work hard, and opportunity comes, you need to make sure that you're ready for that opportunity.
Meanwhile, Cameron Hanekom is set to become the 12th Springbok to make his test debut this season after being named on the replacements bench for Bok coach Rassie Erasmus in a match 23 that shows 7 personnel changes to the team that beat England 29-20 in London on Saturday. Jaden and Jordan Hendrickse are the first set of brothers to appear together since Dan and Robert du Preez featured against Wales in Washington at the start of the 2018 season. The team also features a new lock combination of the fit again Jean Klein and Franco Mustard, while the only change in the loose trio is at flanker, while Ulrich Lowe replaces Peter Steph du Toit, who is nursing a shoulder niggle and will start alongside Captain Siya Kolisi and hot running number 8 Jesper Visser. Rassie Erasmus is looking forward to this one this weekend. Then in cricket, the Proteas South Africa have announced their 14-player squad for the upcoming 2 test series against Sri Lanka, and a major inclusion on the side sees Captain Themba Bavuma return as skipper, having recovered from a left elbow injury which ruled him out of the recent series in Bangladesh. 2 more changes in the squad that featured in Bangladesh have Marco Jansen and Gerald Coetzee back in the test side for the first time since the home series against India earlier this year. Then in tennis, Roger Federer says that Rafa Nadal made the whole tennis world proud during his epic career as he paid tribute to his former rival before his retirement. Nadal will play his singles match today in the 2024 Davis Cup in the tie that pits Spain against the Netherlands. Then in golf, Sergio Garcia is set to rejoin the DP World Tour for the 2025 season because that he wants to play at next year's Ryder Cup. The 44-year-old, who is in the event's record point scorer, wants to match Lee Westwood and Sir Nick Faldo's European record of 11 appearances at the competition. However, in order for that to happen, the Spaniard has had to settle the outstanding substantial fines, reported to be more than £1 million, imposed on him by the tour for his previous defection to play live events, and he will also have to serve a suspension. On that note, looking forward to seeing how Bafana is going to perform against South Sudan this evening, but I'm sure it might be a nice one for them.
And what's your kit like? Just describe it for those who can't see you.
I am wearing a green and gold Bafana jersey.
There you are. And of course, those who want to have streaming live, you can check out on camera. But if not, we should take a picture now and then we'll post it so you know exactly what we mean. I don't have it. I should get one. Hint, hint.
Yeah, I think I will organize you one. With that said, it's a wrap from my side.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Bayes Naudé Drive northbound in Melville has a crash reported before Thomas Barlow Street. The R21 northbound in Kempton Park has a stationary truck near Fort Turker Road. The M12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview is queuing on both routes towards Gilulis interchange. The N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road. The N1 northbound in Pretoria queuing towards the Garsfontein Road exit. And on the N12 westbound in Benoni, a fatal crash reported near Tom Jones Street. The road remains closed and traffic is diverted at Snake Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck after Market Road exit. The M4 northbound is slow moving towards Broadway, Durban North exit. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park, and Chris Hani westbound is queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, Bafana hosts South Sudan in an AFCON qualifier match at DHL Stadium this evening. Kickoff is at 6 p.m, so you're asked to expect delays on local routes throughout the area. The M2 outbound is slow moving towards the R3 and Red Highway. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Kromboom Road exit, and the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one get one offer, you get great value for money. You know you can trust us with over 350 stores nationwide. Get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye test and spectacle frame with lenses on your first pair. Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Tommy Hilfiger, Carolina Herrera and more. There really is no reason to go anywhere else. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Imagine a South Africa where every child born today and tomorrow and the next day and the next had enough love, enough food, enough safety and brain power today and tomorrow and the next day and the next. Together, we will change their future. Join us by visiting
holdmyhand.org.za. That's holdmyhand.org.za.
MasterChef's salty voiceover guide to mispronunciation. Today's word, finale. Origin, Italian. Pronunciation, finale. Meaning the last part of a series, commonly mispronounced as
final.
As if you are discussing your matric results. Example.
I can't wait to see the final results of MasterChef.
If you insist on saying final, it's okay. Watch the grand finale of Final on November 23, 8:30 on S3. MasterChef, things are about to get salty.
Right, so Tumira speaking about winning 60 million rands. I'm not standing in line because I just don't play it. But if you're up to it, 69 million rands in total estimated for the Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots. And that could turn today into a day to remember for you, right? So play the Powerball for an estimated 65 million rands and the Powerball Plus for around 4 million rands, right? You need to get your tickets in-store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba, as a reminder, is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And Jimmy Moyaha hosts the SAFM Market Update daily from 6 to 7 p.m. That is. As a precursor to all of that, Jimmy, good chatting to you as always. Let's talk about what's moving markets today.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. I, for one, will be buying a Powerball ticket because I think that will move the market if I win that. Hopeful of that. Okay. But what we are looking at on the show today is we're going to be speaking to the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, around the construction mafia. It seems as though the value of projects that have been disrupted since 2019 by the construction mafia to date is around 63 billion odd rand. So we're going to speak to the Minister there around what happens now. There was a summit that was held in Durban today. There was a Durban declaration that was signed. We're going to unpack that and see where we go to from here, because infrastructure has been mentioned by the president and by everybody else to be the cornerstone of how we need to keep moving forward as a country from an economic point of view. So it is quite important, and we're going to take a look at this and see if we can make sense of it. Then we've also got a conversation with an independent analyst around the Eskom update, everything from the suspensions in NERSA, the tariff hikes, the recording the recoding of meters that's taking place. I know you've been doing quite a bit of promotional work around that, just to give awareness around those recodings that are taking place. But we're going to look at that, and we're going to see where we stand at the moment and try and make sense of it, because at the end of the day, we have been load shedding free for the longest time, but some places are still experiencing things like load reduction. So we're going to unpack that, see if we can understand what's going on. Then we've also got a conversation around the Airbnb market. As we head into the festive season, this typically becomes a very popular space, but it seems there's new Airbnb regulation that is being proposed that could limit the amount of days that people are allowed to book an Airbnb. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at the impact that will have, and whether or not it is a practical proposal that's being put forward. And then, because it's Tuesday, we're going to also take a look at an agri feature. We're going to take a look at a research discovery by a PhD student student and researcher at the University of Pretoria who's discovered 2 new dung beetle species to add to the more than 500 that we already have in South Africa. Before we get to all of those lovely things, the markets, let's do a quick summary of what's been happening throughout the day. US markets are in the red at the moment, but let's start with Asian markets. They would have been trading first, of course, for the day. They all traded in the green. The ASX in Sydney leading the charge was 0.9% in the green there. Shanghai up 0.67, so 0.2% in the green. Hong Kong 0.4% in the green. The Nikkei in Tokyo 0.5% in the green. European markets all in the red. The CAC 40 in France down 1.4%. The DAX in Germany 1.5% in the red. And the FTSE in London 0.5% in the red. US markets, as I said, are in the red at the moment, but they of course still have the rest of the trading evening or their trading afternoon to get through. The Nasdaq now 0.1% down. The S&P 500 0.5% down. The Dow Jones almost a full percent in the red. Our own local markets were a bit of a mixed bag. Industrials down 0.45%. At some point that was higher than that. Financials 0.1% in the green. They were in the red as well at some point during the day. But resources coming through for us 1.5% in the green. As a result, the all share 0.1% higher, the top 40 0.1% higher, and the commodities prices again being the leading pack there. If we look at the palladium price back above $1,000, $1,037 an ounce, platinum $979 an ounce, Brent crude $73.65 a barrel, heading towards that $75 level that we don't really like, and coupled with what the rand is doing at the moment, not looking very good at the moment, but still manageable for now. The gold price $2,624 an ounce, 0.5% higher. We were at $2,550 odd an ounce sometime last week, so good to see us back on good ground there. It's good for our gold miners there. Quick look at those currencies. 18 Rand and 2 cents is what $1 will cost you. 22 Rand and 82 cents is what $1 British pound will cost you. If you're looking to buy a euro, 19 Rand and 9 cents. $1 Australian dollar, 11 Rand and 74 cents. Bitcoin back above $90,000, $92,000, $92,130 odd dollars to be precise. At that current exchange rate of 18 Rand and 2 cents, you're looking at about 1.66 million Rand for a Bitcoin. We still haven't gotten to that 2 million Rand mark. I'll keep you updated on that and see if we get to that. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
So listen, we normally end with the masterclass, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take advantage of saying you are the masterclass, because I'm looking at this post and it says Radio Awards categories and nominations for the category Business and Finance show, and the show is called SAFM Market Update, hosted by Jimmy Moyaha. It's only a nomination, but it's a masterclass to me.
Well, we do the very best that we can for the people of South Africa. There's an importance that's being placed on a national radio station like SAFM to provide quality content to all of our listeners around the world, especially because we are a national broadcaster. So we accept and we appreciate the nomination, but it doesn't mean that we stop doing the work.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, a nomination in this category is formidable. Now, we know only one radio station can win it ultimately in that category, but just to be nominated is huge. I know that, and you know that. So well done to you and your team.
Thank you very much, Ashraf.
And that's our masterclass for today. Catch the show and find out why Jimmy and the team were nominated by listening 6 to 7 here on the SAFM coming up soon, right? We'll talk about other winners just now.
Do great solutions start with a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, there's some of the questions that we've had. Well, the issue of Zamazamas, clearly another issue there.
Ashraf, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to your team. Great show always. It's Uncle JJ, the truck driver. I don't think these Zamazamas, they are serious. Now they want blankets and tablets. What they are doing is illegal. The power of saying we want tablets and the blankets and the food is the same power they must use to say we want to come out and face our consequences. How do you take it, Ashraf?
Okay, here's another, and let's get to, in fact, Atuka in Orkney. Go ahead, that's mining land, I would think. Atuka, good chatting to you, hello.
Hello, Ashraf, and good evening to the
Yeah,
listeners.
thank you.
I just want to correct, I want to correct a few things here.
Yeah.
Orkney is a mining town.
Yes.
We've got Basotho from Lesotho, Basotho from Free State, We've got the Shangaan people, all over, and Xhosas, we are a diverse group here in Auckland. So when we talk about undocumented people, people must not misconstrue us with xenophobia. We've got a very strong Basotho population in Auckland. And Ashraf, I want the people here to know, those that are saying unemployment is poverty, I need you guys to know, there are forums here for unemployed mine workers. We are busy trying to facilitate for the mines to employ the people. We've got so many mine workers in our community. We don't see them getting engaging in these illegal activities for people to come and say it's high unemployment, it's poverty. The fact of the matter is, we even have the military, we've lost soldiers here fighting with Amazamazam. You can't tell me that unemployed mine workers suddenly can stand up to the military of this country. We've got private security here that have to fight with Amazamazam.
Okay.
Our police station is useless right now because every once in a while they are killing right in front of the police station because of Amazamazam. So when we talk about these things, if we don't misconstrue them with other xenophobia, then we are talking sex.
Okay.
This is our community. We live in peril here because of Amazamazam.
Okay, Atuka, I'd love to engage with you further. We just don't have enough time. Maybe some other time. Thank you for your comments. Right, let's get another couple that we can see if we can just play. Right, here's another from the earlier conversation we had.
Ashraf, the lady that you're interviewing now, she sounds like a lawyer. How do you advocate for criminals, people that have been murdering, robbing, raping women in the cities that they are in, the mines? And you want to protect those people. You want people to take risk and go down and take them out of the mines. I think that lady must go. She must be the one that must go and rescue them. Let her go. Actually, all the people that say they must be rescued, let them go and rescue them.
Okay, let me just play, and here's a comment on political parties.
Hi Ashraf, this is Okuhle Mkhize in Hildegren. Please call the political parties and ask them when are they taking down the election campaign material. Thank you for listening.
Oh, you sound just like me, but you sound better because you are spot on. It's the ultimate service delivery shame that what they put on, that promoted themselves and then littered in doing so afterwards. So many parties, I still see them in the areas that I live. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. And I think we need to pass it on to all those political parties to say, this comes from you on the National Pulse. Thank you.
Bafana are fueled up to display a top-class brand of football to triumph on home soil, while the Bright Stars are going all out in their hunt for victory away from home. This is match day 6 of the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. South Africa versus South Sudan on Tuesday, 19 November at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4, SABC 3 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply. SAFM. Prime time all day long. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
So I mentioned Jimmy Moyaha. Before I end the show, I'll talk about all the other nominations, which is from last year, of course, right, 2023 at the Radio Awards. I'll try and read them out if I can for SAFM. But for now, we talk winners and we talk winning. And my guest is somebody that you should know, Mzwakhe Mbuli, the people's poet. Good chatting to you, Mzwakhe. You're connected to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to your listeners. Thank you once again for the opportunity.
It's been a while. Now we're going to talk to you specifically about an awards that you've put up called the Siaba Kumbula Awards. Tell me about that.
We started in 2010 and launched at Kalaka State Convention. And I think for 3 years later, then we're at the Ascension Convention. Yeah, I think it's posthumous awards. I think you don't have them in this country. I think I conceptualized the whole thing because I thought sometimes when we have other awards, we mentioned that there was Miriam Makeba, but you don't explain who she was, despite the fact that she's a person who could have spent 30 years in exile and come back in the country. But when you have people who have passed on, we tend to mention them in passivos like credits at the end of a film and say there was Ashraf Kaba and Miriam Makeba, Lucky Dube, you know, and then from the music, the show goes on.
So what you're saying, a unique feature, if I understand your unique feature about remembering them, or we remember them, is these are people who've actually passed on. And all of them fall into that category. So there's no awards for living people, right? In this case,
we fortunately what we did, the focus is on posthumous awards, but I think we tend to have we have even a booklet that has a living legends category. We once honored. I think when we partnered with either Parkstar, we honored Miriam Tlali, Jonas Gwangwa, and Nadine Godima. Okay, they were alive whilst we were honoring Lucky Dube, Jabu Kanyile, Brenda Fassie, and them. And we mix, obviously, actors, Erin Trokwane, Dr. Alan Patton. And last year, we honored 3 living legends boxers, Aladdin Stevens, Gregory Clark, and John Bergman. So they are alive, but they were never honored, despite the fact that they plowed their trade even overseas. So this year, we honored PJ Powers amongst the living, and Mara Low, and Victor Songwane, the referee. But I think with people that we honor this year, among others, is Mtsukisi Skali. I think it's WBC, WPF, WPO, a champion. And then you have Richard Mitchell. I think everybody knows. Brenda Fassie, Chico, to Ray Piri. He's the man who recorded even Oli from Tukutsi. Then we make obvious the founder of Bloemfontein Statistics. But the real Razzmatazz man, Abdul Bamji, was honored on the evening on Saturday.
Who can forget his role at
you would say even his wife would not get a complimentary ticket to fill up. They'd say, look at the crowd. So we don't have. He has never been replaced since he passed on. So we had people such as those. Unfortunately, we normally have a category, Ashraf, of those who tragically passed on. E.g., for example, in 2010, we took a Gugu Dlamini was stoned to death in Durban, and no one was arrested. We took, following year, Zodom Shibe. She was a journalist of Sowetan and Drum Magazine, pushed by a boyfriend, taken flawed to her death. No one was arrested to this day. The following year, we honored Mosi Taiwo Mlelekwa. He played piano for Miriam Makeba and Hugh Masekela. His wife, together, they were found hanged and they were killed. No one was arrested. And then we honored last year 2 girls, Spongile and Lindiwe Mpele from Pinville. They were abducted in 2005, raped, killed. Their bodies were found.
So, I mean, there's so many.
We mix. Coming. So I think we have a slogan that says people forget what they should remember and they remember what they should forget. So that's us, Ashraf. And these are South Africans strictly to date so far that we honor. We immortalize their legacies. These are the people who entertained us, comedians, authors,
All right. Well, I mean, there's so many. So can I direct them to a website or a social media account? They can
what we do, there are almost 500. The website is being created because we don't touch politics. We won't touch Chris Hani. We won't touch Winnie Mandela. We go as far as Chris McGregor in exile. Those. So it's a pool. We cannot match the numbers of people dying because last year it was Mbongenike, Mazahara, Solim Hulu. There are a number of them, but we can only take 15 a year.
And Mzwakhe, very quickly, Mzwakhe, I understand that one of the features of what you do, besides honoring them, is in fact you make an effort to visit their families. Tell me about that very quickly.
Amen, hallelujah. Without family visits, no awards. Period. Without family physical visits, no awards. And no one will do that because it takes a lot of time to visit KwaNongoma, Eastern Cape, Durban, Northwest. You have to, because Ashraf, we can't advertise Lucky Dube. We can't, the family cannot see on the media, on the newspapers, we're honoring Jabu Kanyile or Ashley Kali, but we have never visited them. So we this weekend we had a den Dan and Des Lindbeck, the founders of Naledi Award. So we physically try to make sure we contact, we go to these families, because that's Ubuntu. And then mostly 90% of people who, if we have honored 150 people to date from 2010, we have been to their houses inside. Fortunately, my face becomes a license, because everybody says that we can recognize this face. Otherwise, if it was a stranger, they will think of crime, and that will be chucked out. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, well done on what you do.
And,
I think,
okay, maybe before I forget,
very quickly, yeah.
we're the only awards that has a booklet, and I show the only awards that give some monetary incentive. Others, you go and say thanks at last, but you can't buy fish and chips.
Well, get that website up quick and running so we can share that to other people as well.
It's there in the making at Sumul City to be
the People's Poet, founder of now what is called the Siaba Kumbula Awards, which essentially means we remember them, and they award people in the main posthumously, and then they go and visit their families as well. Now, that's another form of winning, isn't it? So I mentioned the South African Radio Awards. So it reflects, excellence for last year. The nominations have come out, and of course I think the awards will come up later on. But for now, in the categories, and this is from an SAFM's perspective, for the categories in the Breakfast Show presenter, it's Michelle Constant. Of course, Stephen Curtis is no longer with us, but of course, and then the Breakfast Show, Sunrise, and then the Jet Set Breakfast Show, also nominated. The Business Show, I mentioned already, the SFM Market Update. The Music Show, The Full Circle, which is for the music that is played on that show that comes up before me with Bridget. And then News and Actuality, once again, Sunrise. And then News Bulletin readers, Eva Chipa, Luyanda Maome, as well as Zoleka Kodashe. And then for the sports show coming up at 7 o'clock tonight, that one gets a nomination too. And then overall for station imaging for SAFM. All of those are nominated. They're not winners as yet, but as you know, when you're nominated nationwide, well, you're winners already. And we love talking about winners as we win every single day. This is the National Pulse. We'll do it again tomorrow. Right now, it's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, Minister justifies withdrawing SABC bill and municipalities to intervene in inspecting spaza shops. Good evening. The Minister of Communications